Okay, so we are live, it looks like. Just telling people that we're live. So hopefully, anybody that wants to tune in for the stream shows up tonight. I want to talk about a number of things, um, and one of them is confidence. The other one is Bott periodicity, and what impact confidence has on how we interact with the world. What is the difference between confidence in your competence and arrogance? And I think we've lost our way with understanding what is actual confidence. And that's because we're so incredibly used to false humility, as I've explained on here before, is basically that we grew up in this media era where everybody was desegregated according to gender in a way that just wasn't true in the past, and that changed the incentive structures so that for some reason we are posturing about humility nonstop, and we cannot stop. Like it's like an addiction or something. Uh, I remember even being younger when I was in school, and like I went to public school, but it was like one of the nicer public schools in Tucson, Arizona, which that there's beautiful parts of Tucson, Arizona, but it's not like I grew up in Beverly Hills. And but I remember when there was like this weird desire by everybody around me to like be as perceived as poor as possible. And they grew out of that kind of when we got, to high school. Then there's like people that, go the opposite direction, which is equally unhealthy. But um, this was very weird to me. I'll never forget it because I didn't understand it. I was like, why are you trying to be seen as poor? There's nothing wrong with, having less money, but purposely making yourself be, poor is weird. It definitely, there's part of it that gives people a little bit more validity, because if you grew up poor and you are where you are surrounded by people who didn't grow up poor, then all of a sudden, you worked harder or you were more competent or something like that. But I think that's kind of how it started. But it grew beyond that everywhere. And you see people constantly who are objectively some of the most talented people in the world who will be told, you are objectively one of the most talented people in the world. And they will be like, oh, not that great. And I don't think that it's good to, you know, be like the Trumpian, purposely cocky, attitude. And I don't, have any issues with Donald Trump, but that is kind of the brand. It's easy to verbalize it by just saying that. And I don't think that that is necessarily, a healthy mindset to have either. But it's to have false humility is the opposite of humility, because humility is about admitting the truth. It's not about having, humble beginnings, as we would call them, whatever that means. It's about just being honest. If you're confident, you have to admit that confidence in order to be humble. If you're not confident, you have to admit that you're not confident in order to be humble. It's situational, and it's dependent upon your confidence level on how you should act in order to basically, you know, uh, deduce like what is a humble action. And so this is something that I want to talk about because I do think that it's causing more problems than just, the obvious ones. So there's obviously, as somebody who kind of stumbled into this like theory of everything environment, I'm constantly accused of arrogance if I think that I have, done the things that I've done. And that's kind of like a niche instance of where this would pop up, but it's not actually like a really detrimental one because I'm confident in my work. So that's not really a problem. But the fact that other people are identifying that somebody who has an odd idea and is confident in that odd idea is intrinsically arrogant, that's the problem. Because that is the sign of a systemic problem that's impacting everybody in much more detrimental ways than, people who, think they solved some science problem or something like that. I think that it's destroying our constructive dominance hierarchies. And we need those in order to make sense of a social situation. And so this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. And because I've just been observing the impact that, this has in kind of an exaggerated instance. I like Beaded Lizard is going crazy over there. I don't know. She's hungry or something. But it is incredibly important, though, to be honest and be comfortable with being honest, because that in and of itself is confidence. You don't have, if you are confident in your, inability to do something, that's still confidence. It's not just about competence, it's about competence in your self, in your understanding of self. So, and that's really what, this project is really all about, is it's about understanding self, because that is what a sentient being is. It is a being that understands the world via understanding itself and how it relates to the world. So it has to have some degree of an accurate self-image in order to orient itself in existence in a logical way. And this is true of our relationship with confidence and humility. And what would be the opposite of confidence? It's like, what is that? Like, not nervous, but let's look it up. Antonym confidence. Okay. Yeah. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, synonyms are assurance, self-assurance, exactly, self-assuredness, self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-trust. That's literally all of them. And aplomb. I've never heard of that word. But every other one, other than assurance, is a word that starts, it's a hyphenated word that starts with self. That's amazing. Okay, here, you guys can look. Self-assuredness, self-assurance, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-trust. This is why this is such an important topic. It's because it is about how we honestly present ourselves to those around us. And that is very much linked to your self-competence, or your competence in general, because in order to be competent, you have to interact with the world in a true fashion. If you sacrifice truth for the sake of, I don't know, like a little bit of, what's like convenience, momentary convenience, that is not going to lead to a good outcome over time. And if you get really comfortable, or even kind of, addicted to making yourself be as poor as possible and as oppressed as possible, same thing, and as disabled as possible, and as incompetent as possible, which it does clearly seem to be an epidemic in this, not just in this country, but across the West particularly, is that there is this obsession with being incompetent. It's so strange, but I think that there's always an explanation for things, but nothing happens for no reason. There's always a reason, there's always an explanation, and it's usually far simpler than we make it out to be. It's us that complicates things. And, when people think that understanding the universe is so complicated, it's like, whenever something is so complicated, it's because we've arranged it in a way that is complicated, or we have discovered it in a way that is complicated. But the laws of existence are not complicated. They might be complicated to describe verbally, because a lot of times we don't even have the linguistic tools to describe, certain things, but the existence is not complicated. And we, though, have just overcomplicated everything, and then also simultaneously purposely downplayed, in a competitive fashion, our incompetence at maneuvering and discovering and translating that universe. This is a disaster. And I don't really know what the solution is, other than to say that self-esteem is the solution. I look at, even my own younger siblings and friends that I grew up with that are younger, and not all of them are younger, but that display this. But particularly, I have felt for younger generations that they've got it even worse than us. It's like they're inheriting a worse social situation where just nothing makes sense, because people are, instead of displaying their competence to the world so that everybody can see that that guy's got it, and we should go and maybe go to him when we have a problem with whatever it is that he's competent in. If that guy's a good dancer, we go to him when we need a dancer. If that guy's a good, special forces operator, we go to him for that. If that guy's a good physicist, we go to him for that. If that woman is a great nurse, or is a great author, it's like we go to them for that. But we don't do that. We kind of do, because it's kind of inevitable. But at the same time, even though our existence is necessitating the need to go and pursue and follow competence, we are also, for some weird social reason, competitively competing, I guess, to see who is the least competent out of all of us. And maybe that's because and one of the reasons, this is one theory that I have, is that as our marriage structures have broken down, and our self-regulating structures within that and around that marriage structure, so the extended family and the nuclear family and the system of families that organize around each other, as these structures have broken down, we have relied more and more heavily on government. And when you do that, the person who's most justified in them being completely taken care of is the one who is the most incompetent. And I've seen this in all sides. You see this with women, you see this with men. I'm not a woman, so I don't truly understand it, even though I see them engaging in it all the time. People will be like, well, we need to discuss how we're all, mentally ill, and we need to discuss how we're all disabled, and we need to discuss, it's like, as a mentally ill, disabled, handicapped, poor person, it's just It's just a competition of who is the least competent. That's what it is. And I think it's because it makes you most justified in receiving not just help, but like support, complete support. Says YouTube is not receiving enough data. Hopefully you guys are still getting the stream and I didn't say something too offensive to get kicked off. But when I see men, though, who are engaging in this behavior, and it's usually around their relationships with women, where they're just they want to be incompetent at this point. And not really, nobody really wants to be incompetent, but there's something that they're getting from perceiving themselves as incompetent. And like somebody said to me once, I brought up the fact that I was getting married, and they said to me, well, we're not all that good looking. And I was like, well, I'm 5'6" or on a 5'7" on a good day in the morning, and like not Fabio. I'm not like ugly, but I'm not Fabio, and I don't have any issues. Like I have 15 snakes. It's like there's lots of and that's not actually a problem, but a lot of people would outside perceive that would be like not attractive. But the thing is that people are actually attracted to competence, and if you're competent, even in some weird niche like that, people are attracted to it, including the opposite sex. Even if it's a weird niche, and girls are afraid of creepy animals or something, it doesn't matter. Your competence is attractive, and confidence in that competence is attractive too. And so, don't hide your, hobbies. I did that for a large portion of my life, and it was a stupid idea. And but I had said that why is it that so many people that I know around me, and it's not so many people, but there's a number of people that are not models, and they are getting married and not having no hope as far as their relationships with the opposite gender. And the person basically said, well, you must be really rich, which is not true at all. I have like tens of thousands of dollars worth of college debt, and that's my debt. Like I am not wealthy, but I'm I have a roof over my head, thank God. And but these people kept saying things after thing after thing to try and basically eliminate their own responsibility of just saying, you know what, I'm not looking exactly the way I want to look. I'm not as good at everything that I want to be good at as I want to be. I don't make as much money as I thought I would at this age. Join the club. And whatever else, it is that we are failing to live up to our own ideal self-image. And the thing about this is, though, is that it's for the sake of just excusing inaction, I think, in men. Because men are the active force. They are supposed to be active. You cannot just sit there and react to the news and react to women and react to, the media and the corporate structure. You have to put your foot down, and when society is trying to force you to react. As a man, you're supposed to act, not react. And you have to put your foot down, and sometimes putting your foot down and not reacting is action. And sometimes when the incentive structures around you don't seem to be incentivizing action, then you have to act. So, doing something independent of your immediate environmental incentives is action. Where you're not responding, you are aware and you're choosing. So I have this, statement that used to be on my Twitter, but it said, if you chase a headless chicken, then you are a headless chicken. It's basically, you got two problems here. One, a chicken chasing a chick, if all you do is chase a chicken, then you're just reacting to another chicken. And if that chicken is headless and it doesn't know where it's going, and all you're doing is chasing someone that doesn't know where they're going, then you're being reactive and you're being led by somebody who doesn't know where they're going. And if you chase that, then you are that. It doesn't matter that you have a head. If that chicken doesn't have a head and you're following it, you are a chicken with its head cut off. If you chase a chicken with its head cut off, then you are. And this is basically what's happened when we get into these competitions of like, who's the most, when we get into competition, that's really what it is. Competence is not about competition. It's not. Now, there are competitive environments that allow us to measure our competence in comparison to other people, but competence isn't about competitiveness. You can change a tire and it doesn't matter if you do it in, 18 minutes versus 5 minutes. If you can do it, that's much more important than how fast you can change a tire. So it's anytime though that you make action or reaction about just competing with others blindly, keeping up with the Joneses, that is being a chicken with its head cut off. It's not good, and it's not even true competence, because true competence is in the ability to intentionally overcome perceived obstacles. And it's not that are real, okay? Not that are fake, like, oh, so-and-so has, I don't know, a nicer car than me. It's like, that's not an obstacle to you. Now, did your car break down and you can fix it and get home? That's an obstacle you have to overcome that requires competence. And this concept is so important because it is translating into just destroying every single field out there. There's no confident political leader that is, other than, like I said, Donald Trump, who doesn't just get mercilessly attacked, because we attack anybody that claims that they're assured of themselves. This is also true in academia, and it's also true of, the scholastic environment, and it's clearly true of social environments that are just, everything's converging. So then when we say things like, why is everything becoming about politics? It's like, because everything is becoming about everything, and everything is becoming about interaction as we get more connected. So of course it's becoming about politics. And it's a superposition. We're becoming more disconnected as we're becoming more connected. But regardless, navigating this new environment is difficult, and I do understand that. But there is this lack of boldness that exists, and I honestly, I was like crying pretty like strongly the other day, because I watched this TED Talk, and I don't know if I can show it without the stream then getting, pulled or something like that, but there was this TED Talk, and it's called The Case for Having Children, and it just came out. And there is this guy who was trying to make the argument that you should have kids. And the day before, or the day of even, I can't remember, I will take a look and play at least like 30 seconds of it, of him giving this talk about the importance of having kids. His baby daughter is diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. Talk about a blow. And this man got up in front of everybody and confidently said that having kids, if you can do it, there are obviously people in this world that cannot, and that at least appears to us and to be a tragedy, and God is in control. That's all I'll say. And I do recognize that it's got to be very difficult. I'm not married yet. But everybody thinks about how, it's funny because when you're young, the scariest thing that can happen is you have a child by accident, and as you get older, the scariest thing that can happen is you not being able to have children. But is that really the scariest thing that can happen, or is it you have a baby daughter and she ends up getting stage 4 liver cancer, and you march on, and you're like, get in front of a crowd at TED the day of. I'm pretty sure it was the day of. We're gonna look, but I'm pretty sure it was the day of. If it wasn't the day of, it was the day before. And you look everybody in the eye in that crowd of people who do everything in the culture right now to basically claim that having kids is selfish for some reason because of the environment. Because you are nature. Like, you're not separate from nature. You are nature. If humans do not survive and go on to build the structures that come after us, then this place will all disappear, and all the trees were for naught. So it is important, I believe, that we have kids. You know, not everyone. Like I said, there are people that are not meant to have children. But the narrative in general truly should be, because it is true, that children are important to maintaining a stable society and making sure that it doesn't become top heavy and then just collapses, and also giving us an intrinsic understanding of meaning and keeping us from obsessing over destructive things like, you know, I don't know, CNN. So like you need things that motivate you to build and to step up when needed. And if we aren't getting married and we aren't having kids because we're not being bold enough, it's going to create this like self amplifying system where all of a sudden you don't even have a reason anymore to be bold. It's like, why be bold when all you'll do is if it's, you know, based on some scientific, you know, theory, or, you know, I don't know, you're running in politics and it will, then both of them will end up getting you mocked, but one of them gets you totally trashed and slandered by, you know, the press of the world. And then if you have children, people call you selfish. And there's just so many social incentives telling us already not to have kids, or not to commit to someone, even if you don't have kids, but to permanently commit to somebody. And then all of a sudden, you go and you don't do those things, and now you have no reason to be bold in the face of a hostile mob. That sucks. How long can that cycle go on? And this all boils down to what I would just say is honesty, which is true humility. There's no differentiation. Our idea of humbleness is wrong. And I don't know if it's due to it being contextualized in a, I do think that this is true, but it's been contextualized in this like kind of empty, meaningless, materialistic, you know, perspective that our current, you know, I don't know, priests of the world, I guess you could say, which is our academic environment, has of the universe, is that it's just this cold, you know, meaningless, random ball of dust, and you are an accident. And if that's true, that's also going to incentivize the fact that, you know, why be bold? What's worth standing up to the mob? What's worth facing your fears? Who knows? You know? It's like as we confront less and less physical violence in society, right, for now, hopefully it lasts, and as, you know, we confront less and less starvation, we're also simultaneously just destroying our ability to make sense of each other in a social context because nobody's being honest about their understanding and their competence. We need competent people. It was pretty funny actually. Like yesterday, I was on the Portal Discord, of course, and like usual, things spiraled. But it was like there was actually like lots of good moments. I enjoy that. I'm a fighter. Like I love martial arts and fighting, and you can't just go around getting into fights with people, and that's not good. And but you can go and spar, and like you can either do that mentally or physically, and I like both. And so I get so does everybody else on this Discord. That's not just me. But so it is fun, even though like sometimes it just becomes a waste of time. But one of the funny things that happened was they had looked on my Clubhouse, which if you don't follow me on Clubhouse, you should join Clubhouse and follow me on Clubhouse, because I'm going to try and do more live conversations with people on there. And basically, they had looked at my bio, and in my bio it says reptile expert, which I am. And they took quite issue with this, because this is just adding to the list of things that I'm claiming to be competent in, which there's plenty of things I'm not competent in. I suck at anything musical, and I suck at dancing, anything performative. I'm not good at painting or drawing. I can do photography, but that's about it. And other than that, I kind of suck at art. And like that is because there's something about being, I just focus too much on how I'm being perceived, and when I'm trying to do something that is like intrinsically for the sake of people listening or watching or observing, something like that. And so I would never claim competence in those things, but I am a reptile expert. And I told them, I was like, there is not a reptile that you could name or that you could show that I won't know. And they didn't believe me, but they put it to the test, and it was absolutely hilarious, because there was not one that I didn't know. There was a couple that they gave me a half point on because of a technicality, but like there wasn't one that I lost a point. Not one. Which means there wasn't one that they showed me that I was just lost. Not one. And it ended up being like hilarious, because most people don't see that competence in like your ability to name every snake and lizard on earth like as very threatening to their own competence, because it's not something that people compete over usually, outside of weird niches. And so it just became very entertaining for them, which I'll do a guessing game on reptiles all day long. Like that's fine with me. But it was interesting to see just how much they doubted the fact that what I was saying was true. And they don't have a reason to think that I'm a reptile expert. They don't know me. If you do know me, then you know that I'm a reptile expert. But if you don't know me, you don't have a reason, because I don't have a degree in it purposely. I started going to school for biology, and then I was going to become a herpetologist, but I chose money instead, because I was blindly pursuing status and wanted to keep up with the Joneses at that time in my life. So, but when somebody says I'm an expert, the I don't think that it's reasonable to just blindly believe them, but I don't think it's unreasonable either to think that it's just so unlikely that it's almost impossible. It's like if somebody was like, I'm an expert clarinet player, I'd be like, that's awesome. I wish I was. Or I wish I was even able to play hot cross buns on a clarinet. I can't. Like, I wish I could play, Happy Birthday on the piano. I can't. But if somebody told me I'm an expert piano player, I wouldn't actually really doubt them. Now, would they be the first one that I called if I needed an expert piano player? No, I'd probably call the guy who I knew was an expert piano player, but I wouldn't rule them out as being totally just, dishonest. And that was weird. And, like, who's going to lie about being a reptile expert? Like, of everything you could, possibly think of to claim to be an expert on, It's like, guys, I could name every snake and lizard on Earth. It's like, that is not the most glamorous expertise. I like it, but like, I recognize that it's not the one most people would choose if they could choose to be an expert on something. And but even with something so non-threatening as socially as that, there was an immediate hostility to the idea of calling yourself an expert. It's like, why? Because we're at war with competence. And I think that this is partially because we don't want... There's this saying that's like, if you know a little bit of science, then you will be an atheist and a pessimist and a nihilist and whatever. But if you know a lot of science, then you will be a theist and, believe that we're going to be all right. You'll know that we'll be all right. This is also, I think, kind of true of this context too. Is like, if you know a little bit, enough about the world to know that there is differentiation in abilities of humans that's vast. If you know that out of the first 500 best chess players in the world, that 6 of them are women, or 7 of them, something like that, that's not something that we want to face. And Eric Weinstein says that all the time. He's like, I wish that the stats in chess were wrong, but, I can't, ignore them. It's like, I don't wish that they were wrong. Why would you wish that something is the way that it isn't in something like that? Now, there's tragedies that we subjectively experience, and, nobody wishes to experience tragedies or wishes tragedies on others if they're, not going through some serious issues. But to wish that, but it's not a tragedy that, men are very good at chess compared to women. It's what we've lost sight of. Like I said, Eric Weinstein, he acts like he's so sad about this, that women aren't the best chess players in the world. It's not a 50-50 split. It's like, imagine if we were all equally good at it as each other at everything. It's like, why are you valuable to me now? Why am I valuable to you? It's like, when you have a snake in your backyard, I'm valuable because you can send me a picture of it and I'll tell you exactly what it is and whether or not it's dangerous. But if I need somebody to, I don't know, play a song at a party, or I don't know, something, handle the music at a wedding, I'm not going to, rely on myself. I'd go to somebody who is an expert. And this differentiation creates meaning. There is a reason why men are so good at chess, and that reason is women. What a beautiful concept. We are good at something for the sake of someone else, not for the sake of ourselves. How beautiful, but not even how beautiful, how true. And it's not just about men and women with this. It's about, that guy's great at physics because for the sake of that guy, and not for the sake of himself. That guy's a great musician, not for the sake of himself. That girl is an amazing painter, not for the sake of herself. A nurse. This is the most obvious example. The best nurses are women. Like, the best nurses are women. And, you think that being the best nurse in the world would be for the sake of yourself, when literally your job is to care for other people in their most vulnerable moments. It's like, of course not. I don't need to be the best caregiver in the world. And someone doesn't need to be the best chess player in the world. Someone else doesn't need to be the best physicist. And somebody else doesn't need to be the best herpetologist or painter or musician or cook. It's this differentiation that we are purposely avoiding because we view it as threatening to the intrinsic meaning of another person. So like this is one of these things is like when people want to have conversations about IQ or we're involving, I don't know, men, women, race, or physical strength, and again, men, women, race, whatever context, social context you're going to put this in, it doesn't matter. Differentiation is because of meaning. It's for the sake of it. It's absolutely gorgeous, and reality would be so incredibly boring, meaningless, and like literal, it would be boring and meaningless. I don't know what's worse than boring and meaningless, especially if you are like a human being, which is kind of like especially a lot of human beings in the West who are like intrinsically discontent. It's like imagine being bored and feeling meaninglessness constantly when your soul is naturally in a state of discontent, no matter what. Even if you have all your hierarchies of needs met that are at least physical, you're still going to experience discontent. It's like, good luck enjoying life. Good luck being bold. Good luck finding reasons to be bold in that environment. You can't. And, I don't want to claim that that atheism is the problem or something like that. I do think that there is an issue with that, but it's not helpful to say that either. And there are other ways in which everybody can help increase their feelings and their actual manifested meaning in life, and their their boldness in terms of standing up and saying, I am an expert, or standing up and saying, my daughter has stage 4 liver cancer, and I still am going to come on stage today and tell you you should have kids because it is inherently, necessarily valuable. It's inescapable. It's inescapably valuable that you do that, even though, that guy had discovered his daughter had liver cancer that morning, I'm pretty sure. It's like, that is so bold, and nobody is doing that other than very, very, very few people these days. And we don't need that many people to, actually, I disagree. I take that back. I was going to say we don't need everybody to stand against the mob. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. To say we don't need everybody to stand against the mob is to basically excuse anybody that's got a little bit more fear than the guy next to him. You have an obligation to be honest. That is humility. If you think you're an expert, you have an obligation to say it. If you think you suck at something, you have an obligation to say it. If you grew up monetarily wealthy, you have an obligation to say it. If you grew up monetarily poor, you have an obligation to say it. If you grew up with, lacking in having value in your family life, you have an obligation to say it. You don't have to tell people all your secrets and sins. Everybody has those. But you do have an obligation to present yourself honestly to the world. And if you don't, nobody can make sense of anything. Because who's good at what? Who do we go to in this situation? Who do we go to in this situation? What is the meaning of us being here in the first place? How do we deal with differentiation in competence in humans and not hate ourselves for being competent or hate ourselves for being incompetent in something? Should you hate yourself if you have an 85 IQ? No. You have an 85 IQ because it's allowing you to have an increase in competence in some other form of interacting with your environment because you're not going to overthink things too much. And someone else is going to have a high IQ that's uniquely high to make up for, your lacking. or someone's physical strength is going to make up for someone else's physical weakness. Our different, you know, strengths and you know, desires and goals and interests are all not for the sake of us. They are for the sake of others. Now, you should enjoy your hobbies, obviously, but your hobbies should translate somehow into having a positive impact on others in some way, even if it just means making you better. But if your hobbies don't make you better at all, and they don't help other people, and you know, you never take a stand for the truth, you're going to have that same self-reinforcing and amplifying structure where you're going to continue to lose self-esteem, and it's harder and harder to pull yourself out. And I mean, I'm saying this as somebody who had like serious self-esteem issues in like certain parts of my life, like when I was an adolescent, which a lot of people have. That's where they have their self-esteem issues. But I had more than most people at those ages, I would say. And, you know, I still never would have said, oh, I'm not that much of I don't know that much about snakes. It's just like, you know, sneak this encyclopedia of snakes home, you know, even though it's against the school library rules. It's like, I would never downplay that. I did hide my hobbies because I thought people would think I was weird, but thinking people will think you are weird based on your interests is not the same as downplaying your competence. And hiding something is not as destructive as lying about it. You know, it's like, if I don't know, like if I don't know, if you're embarrassed of, you know, I posted this video that was on Twitter and Instagram of me, like I was just spinning the bow staff around and I screwed up and I hit this cup and like it just caused this like cascading crash to make all this noise, and my roommate like turns around and he's like, "Want to stop fucking around with that?" And it was hilarious, and I recorded it, and I had never posted it, and a lot of people don't post things like that because it's embarrassing. You know, it's not like, you know, it's gonna end your world. But I thought it was so funny, and I wanted to post it at the time, but I just didn't do it because honestly it was a little bit of an embarrassing thing. But last week I was just looking at it, came up again in my phone, and I just was looking at it. I was like, this is too funny. I have to share it. Because even our embarrassing moments, though, are often for the sake of others. If you make them that way. It's like, do you have any people laughed at that video? There was two videos that I've had marketers offer to buy from me twice, and I've refused both times. And one of them is I'm holding a snake, and it's a carpet python, and I'm showing a video of it to someone. I was taking a video of it for somebody who wanted to buy the snake, and I'm holding the snake, and it's never bitten me before, and I'm like, he doesn't bite, and as soon as I say he doesn't bite, of course, he bites me like right on the arm, and I jump, and then I made some hilarious face at the camera, just out of reaction. And I had like some marketing company, I posted that, and it got like, I don't even know, it was shared so many times. There was tens of thousands of likes on it across Instagram, and not just, you know, my profile. I'm pretty sure there was still like 4,000 or 5,000 likes or something like that. It's easily my most liked post. And then, though recently I posted that video of me just, you know, screwing up and hitting a cup and it causing a crash and my roommate cursing at me over it. And I had this other, you know, company that buys these viral videos or whatever reach out, and they were like, can we buy this from you? And obviously it had gotten lots of engagement and you know, laughs. People thought it was hilarious. People sent me private messages telling me how funny they thought it was. And that does help people. It's like, our failures are lessons, and sometimes they're just entertainment, and that's enough. laughing is valuable. If you can make somebody laugh, it is intrinsically valuable, because what you're doing is you're allowing them to have a moment where they can reflect on themselves to a deeper level than normal, because they're able to confront uncomfortable truths more directly. So it is important to recognize that our failures are valuable to others, not just ourselves. Our weaknesses are for the sake of the manifestation of meaning, as are our strengths. And as I stated on a stream earlier, meaning is about your impact on others. Those that come after you, those that are around you, those that came before you. Meaning is manifested anytime that you impact the actions of another, even if they're already gone. If your grandparent is dead, and their parent and their parent and their parent and their parent and their parent, all the way back to the beginning of the universe, continued to be part of the structure of growth, and then you're just like, you know what? I don't really want to be bold. It's like, well, was that entire lineage of action for billions of years now for naught? I would say not entirely, but you did decrease the value of it. You did. You limited the impact of previous actions of others. You decreased meaning. Impact that's positive, aka resulting in growth, that is the definition of meaning. I mean, kind of objectively. Like we talked about earlier this week, Eric Weinstein said that meaning is proximate meaning and ultimate meaning, and that I agree with this idea, and meaning manifests in a superposition. It makes it easier to talk about when it's two different things, which it is, and you could probably break it into four. But it is going to lead to an increasingly exponential decrease in your self-esteem if you're not honest. And it's not only going to lead to that, other people are going to start losing faith in humanity, which they are. Which is why people don't want to have kids, because of climate change or something like that, because they've lost faith in the value of humanity. Now, I'm not going to say have faith in humans. Don't have faith in humans. They will fail you. But have faith in the value of humanity. And if you are a theist, it's very easy. It's like, well, God chose to create humanity, and obviously there's a reason. Who are we to doubt, his decision? But if you're not a theist, even still, there are so many instances in which you can logically interpret the fact that human beings are intrinsically meaningful, and that basically that means that it's worth being bold for the sake of everyone else around you and yourself. It's worth being confident if you're being honest. It's worth being not being humble. It's worth being humbly honest in your incompetence if you're incompetent. And that's because we can all join together into one team and have that guy be the goalie, and that guy be, offense, and that guy be defense, and that guy be, coach, if we recognize each other's strengths and weaknesses. And we can't if you're hiding it. And we can't if you're lying about your abilities in order to, make up for a lack of talent in that one specific thing. If I was like, guys, I'm never going to show you, but I'm really good at piano. No. I can play, like, I can do that like dun 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 dun. Like, I can do that on a piano. And that's the best thing that I can do on a piano. And I do it with one hand, and it's like, when I'm on a piano, I feel like I look like those people that are typing like this. That's how I definitely play the piano. And like people need to know that I suck at piano. It's very important because that helps us make sense of like who should be in charge of the piano, not me. So, anyways, I'm going to get to questions now, but that was pretty good stream, I think. That was like it was like kind of a I wasn't sure exactly what topic we were going to discuss initially tonight. I do want to show some things involving Bott periodicity, but I wanted to first touch on this because this is such a problem. Like, we need to you need to start exponentially developing self-esteem instead of just exponentially destroying self-esteem. It doesn't just hurt you, it hurts everyone around you. Yo, Ty, you rock those bangers. I don't know what bangers are. You'd have to tell me. The truth getting ridiculed always makes me geek. It's very funny. It's like you can tell when you are over a target because people spiral. But, it's not that's, good about it, but it is something that I do think about all the time. It's like, why? I mean, I know why. I talked about it like with some people recently. Is like when you're talking about such fundamentals of reality, it's not like I'm claiming that there is, that we should differentiate a subspecies, a species of lizard into various subspecies or something like that. And there are people that get like really worked up over that kind of thing, but it's not everybody. You don't walk into a room and it's everybody. It's like that one guy that's only part of that one, lizard community. And it's not the same as like claiming, oh yeah, you think the earth is flat? Oh yeah, you think the earth is round? Both of you are wrong because space is emergent. I commented that on Brian Keating's Twitter, and he did respond to it because he had said something about like, basically like mocking the idea that the earth is flat. And I was just like, well, space-time is emergent, then what's the shape of, does the earth really have an intrinsic shape? It's a good question, I think. But it's just weird that these specific issues of like, did we go to the moon? Like once I was at this party and somebody, this was like years ago, and another person who at the time had worked for PragerU with me brought up, that like Owen Benjamin didn't think that we went to the moon. And he was like, did you hear that like we didn't go to the moon? That he thinks we didn't go to the moon. And I was like, yeah, I know. He's told me that before. He's not the first person that's told me that, but it is pretty rare. And what's funny is that like two of the smartest people that I know, and I include Owen as one of those people, don't believe we went to the moon. I do think we went to the moon, but two of the smartest people that I know, literally, and I mean that, like two of the smartest people that I know, both don't think we went to the moon. So I had said that to this guy, and I was like, though I'm not going to mock it because two of the smartest people that I know, like, they both don't think that. One of them is like they were like a father figure to me growing up, and they're like one of the best herpetologists in the world. They don't think we went to the moon. They were around too. I wasn't even around then. It's like, who am I to say? I mean, I have studied the rockets and stuff a lot, but then I wasn't there. And so who knows? And I said that, and the guy got so upset, he put his fingers physically in his ears and was like, la, 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 and he turned around and walked away. He could not stay in a conversation where I was like, though I will say, two of the smartest people that I know don't believe we went to the moon. It's like, why is that so threatening? Why is the shape of the earth so threatening? Are you going into orbit every week? Like, I don't understand. If you haven't been to space, why are you using, like, how are you claiming that that's an empirical fact that the earth is a sphere? And I, do believe that it manifests to us as a sphere when you are outside it or when you're calculating outside of it. So if you're trying to calculate the shape of the earth from the earth, even then you're you're trying to perceive beyond it. So when you do that, it's going to manifest as basically like a particle. But when you're inside Earth, it looks flat, and it's neither. It's emergent. It's funny. I was like saying we shouldn't say on Earth or off Earth. We should say inside Earth and outside of Earth, because of inside, outside, separate, and oneness, if we wanted to really understand the truth. And then I realized the other day that extraterrestrial means outside of Earth, and intraterrestrial would mean inside of Earth. So there isn't really, extraterrestrial doesn't mean off-world, it means outside. And I was like, that's pretty cool. But like Latin, if that's Latin, was definitely more based in truth, it seems, than English. But regardless, like, there are these weird things that people spiral over. It's like, if you haven't seen the Earth from the outside, why are you using that to judge other people's, like, knowledge? It's like, you haven't ever seen that with your own eyes. You have good taste in art. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do think I know what looks pretty good usually. But that's different from being able to create it. I look at my universe model, and I was thinking about it the other day, and when I was being accused on the Discord of just basically like constructing that purposely because I had some goal and I put it together to make it that way. Which I don't know why you would choose that type of structure if that was what you were doing, but I thought about it after the stream, and I was looking at it because I have, this that my wonderful fiance got me. That is, my just framed cosmological verse. And I was just thinking about it, and I was looking at it, and I was like, that is too beautiful for me to have purposely created. And I mean that literally. Like, I'm not saying that to be like fake humble. Like, I couldn't have created something so beautiful as if it wasn't just emergent. And that's just true. I mean, I couldn't paint that something that beautiful if I wanted to paint something that beautiful. So it's just, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, I love art. I'm all art. I am my music. Yeah, you are your music. I'm a reptile expert. Yes, you are a reptile expert. I can't pronounce your name on this. But Torin, you are a reptile expert. I would agree with that. And I am an expert enough to judge you as an expert. It's a gift and a curse. Yes, it is a gift and a curse. As is every single gift is also simultaneously a curse. Public education, the only thing worse than boring and meaningless. Well, public education is boring and meaningless. It's not worse than boring and meaningless. It is exactly boring and meaningless. That's the problem. The only other issue with it is that it is taking time away that you could be spending learning how to think and, be useful and having fun. Remember that one South American lizard that looks almost exactly like Trebolonotus gracilis, but is completely unrelated? Yes. Convergent evolution is amazing. Two species that are unrelated that end up looking exactly the same because they're found in the same environment is amazing. And it also entirely destroys any argument about preserving races or even the harm done by invasive species over time. People are worried about like pythons and taking on. People thought that pythons would move beyond Florida and they would move up into like Wisconsin. Like, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife produced this ridiculous map that basically said with global warming, the worst possible case of global warming that we couldn't even figure out how to justify anyways. Guess what? We could have, pythons in halfway up the United States. It's like, let me tell you something. If the world has gotten so warm that you can have pythons halfway up the United States, pythons are the last thing that you have to worry about. There's so many other things that have gone very, very wrong. But the thing is, though, isn't it? Why are there no pythons in New York? Why is every snake this big? Because you can only be a snake this big in order to exist in that climate. You can't just release things somewhere and then not have them slowly over decades rebalance and readjust to their environment. It was fascinating. I was listening to Graham Hancock, and he was talking about how there's evidence, and he believes that the Amazon rainforest is not this natural, pristine forest of, that we think it is. It's actually 12,000-year-old or 3,000-year-old or 6,000-year-old, it's probably all of these things, overgrown agriculture. Probably right. Like, that brings a whole new perspective to the idea of like pristine wilderness. Your goal isn't to leave things untouched. That is like a very incorrect understanding that humanity has. Your goal is to build and not destroy, though. So like, you don't just bulldoze every tree around you because you want to build a parking lot. You want to try and maximize sentience. You want to try and maximize the number of trees, maximize the number of geckos, maximize the number of humans, maximize the number of fish that can be sustained, in the environment. And the environment is a sentient. And so, for whatever that's worth, but, which is, I would say, a lot, but, regardless, it is, the point is not to leave no trace. The point is to improve the world. Like, leave no trace is not and I mean, if you go hiking, don't leave trash, And that's the leave no trace thing that, like, you grow up with if you're like a hiking kid or rock climbing kid or something like that. But, and I agree with that, but that doesn't mean, though, that like that's the goal everywhere, because leave no trace, it's like that person is struggling over there. Should I leave no trace? Should I just leave that because that's nature and we should let that guy, fail because I'm super good at the thing that he's failing at and I could go help him, but I'm not going to because that's nature? No. Like, I don't agree with that. So, I mean, if you find an animal in the wild and it is very clearly hurt and you can do something about it, I say do it. I'm not one of those people that's like, just leave it alone. That's just nature. It's like, sometimes it is nature, but that if you can do something positive, do it. If you can preserve a sentient being, or assist a sentient being, do it. Unless it's ticks. If it's ticks, you need to kill them all. That's like the one animal that I legitimately have a phobia over. So I struggle with applying meaning to ticks. But I'm not perfect. If I was God, then I would be like, ticks are beautiful, but I'm not God. And they are terrible creatures. Let me know when you go. Okay. Chess is like brain candy. I actually don't remember the rules to chess, and I haven't played it in like probably 20 years, so I don't really know what you mean, but I'll trust you. Because I'm not an expert, and not an expert, I'm not even a novice at chess. What's your response to antinatalism? They say it's wrong to have kids because the kid can't consent to being born. Obviously wacky, but I'm curious to response. Existence itself, even for God, exists in a superposition between choice and constraints. You're not supposed to choose whether or not you're born. God did not choose whether or not to exist. And I don't even think he can choose to not exist. I think he's just stuck existing. And is, that's even more trapping, at least if you're born and you didn't consent to it and later on you are, angry about it, you can go back to not being born. God can't. So, because that would basically mean like existence itself would have to dissolve into non-existence, and non-existence by definition can't even exist, so existence can't dissolve into non-existence, and existence inherently exists always, eternally. It's a constraint. Antinatalism is it's nihilism 3.0. It's and amplified. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, you don't start at nihilism. You start at hedonism or materialism. Then you start at hedonism. Then you go to nihilism. Then you go to antinatalism because you can't, have children because they can't consent. It's like, that's just ridiculous. Like, it's just a ridiculous idea. I do believe, though, that you are meant to maximize both sentience and consensualism. Like, consent is very important because it is the structure that differentiates that guy from that guy, or that person or that being from that being, is that they are not completely intrinsically entangled with each other to the point where there's no ability to make choices that differentiate them. You do need to have structures that allow for consent. If consent doesn't exist at all in any instances, then there is no meaning. Because meaning is manifested by your impact on another, and there is no another if there's no consent, because everybody is connected. There's no consent between me moving my arm and my arm moving. I tell my arm to move mentally and it moves. That means every cell in my arm is simultaneously being told to make a motion and do something and stop whatever else it's doing. It's not a consensual relationship. And that's why my arm is not separate from me, it's part of me. If you remove consent, you are removing separateness. Cells can make choices to go against the group. It's called cancer. And it leads to nowhere. But if they don't realize that it leads to nowhere, and a cell becomes self-centered, which is exactly what's happening. This is why people say, like, gosh, like, I'm trying not to get kicked off YouTube, but like, when people are like, this ideology is cancer. It doesn't matter what it is. But obviously it's used in more often with certain ideologies than others, but I've heard it used with many ideologies, actually. So I can say it like that and not have... I don't know why I would think that this would get me kicked off the stream, but I was kicked off the stream the other day for something I don't really know, but so I'm trying to tread carefully, I guess, but not at the sacrifice of truth. But when people say, well, that ideology is cancer, what it means is that ideology is an ideology of self-centeredness always at the expense of everyone else. Hedonism, antinatalism, nihilism, feminism, misogyny, they are all cancer. All of them. They are only focused on the self, intrinsically. And that is cancer. It's literally cancer. It's not a metaphor. This was something I couldn't, it was very difficult to explain last night when I told you guys I was jumping on a call. Somebody said that they were going to help me understand some physics that they think I misinterpreted. And the physics that they thought I misinterpreted turned out to be more difficult for them to explain than they thought. I'm not saying they don't understand it, but they certainly couldn't really explain it in a way that could be understood by anybody. And which is Bott periodicity, and at least the details of it, But I had gotten to the idea that it's loops within loops, and so I was there. But regardless, like, that conversation had just spiraled into nonsense. But I was trying to explain to them that, like, there are super literal structures, and I was using that term, that are real, that are not metaphors. Like when I say a proton is a male, it is a male. It's not a metaphor that it's a male. It is a male. A neutron is a female. It's not like a female. It is a female, or at least it's the feminine. It is the feminine gender manifested on the level of hadrons. So it's not, it's not a woman, but it is female or feminine, or the reactive consciousness, the reactive force, and versus proton, which is the active force. And if you don't act, like, neutron's going to spiral around an electron. That's not good either. But as men, like, I'm talking about men there, but it was very difficult for them to come to grips with this idea that, when you see a consistent pattern across fields, we shouldn't just think about it as a meaningless metaphor, or contextually meaningful but objectively meaningless metaphor. And that was a very common critique last night by people, was that, like, I was seeking patterns. It's like, well, yeah, of course I'm seeking patterns, but that's like how you discover anything, is you seek patterns. It's not really an argument, but they were saying that the patterns that I was, matching were unrelated completely, which nothing is unrelated completely, but it is possible that we misinterpret, the meaning of things. But this is that idea that I spoke about earlier, is like, if you believe that the universe its organization is basically just random, and that the only reason why we see an organized universe is because there's literally countless infinite other universes that have no life and follow rules that didn't lead to beauty and symmetry and growth, and we just got lucky to be in the one, or it's just inevitable that whatever is able to perceive the world would be in that universe. That's nonsense. We're inside of a sentient being. Existence is a sentient being. That is an organized structure intrinsically. There's no such thing as randomness. Randomness is your inability to perceive a pattern. Robert Grant says that a lot. He's completely correct. We need everybody to stand against the mob together individually, but not with a mob mentality. I know, Chris, that you're totally right, and that good luck. I mean, we can do it as individuals, and as long as a group is composed of people that got there on their own accord and through self-initiated, movement, you're going to be able to have a group that's capable of free thought and logical deduction and things like that, especially if they're honest about their competences and and incompetences. But if you are as soon as that group grows beyond self-motivated people who discovered it on their own, like the people who are here listening to me now, every single one of them, there's set all 7. It's like those people who are listening now, this is a group that is self-motivated in them being here. They see something true in it, and they see something valuable in it, and it's because they see it. You guys see it. It's not because someone next to you sees it, and someone next to them sees it, someone next to them sees it, and then eventually you just don't want to be left out. So you start saying, well, you're stupid if you don't believe that the Earth is a sphere. It's like, you've never seen the shape of the Earth, ever. Unless I have astronaut friends, which I don't. And so, you know, I know there's things that you can deduce when you look at a rocket launch and it forms a curve. I know. But when that doesn't mean it's still emergent, but still one of the structures that it does emerge as, I do believe, when you're outside, it is a sphere. But I've never been and seen it with my own eyes. Why would I get into a competition over, who really understands this is the people that have never seen it? It's like, no, you're just going along with the herd. It doesn't matter if you're a physicist or you're a mathematician, if you're ripping on people for the shape of the Earth and you have not been to space, those people are the only ones that can be like, guess what? I know, because I'm an expert, that the Earth at least manifests as a sphere when we're outside it, and might objectively be a sphere, which it's, space-time is emergent. But if you haven't been there, don't judge somebody else based on their ideas on the shape of the Earth. If you were born in the 1990s like I was, don't judge somebody who was born in the 1950s or 40s of whether or not if they don't believe that we went to the moon. It's like, I wasn't even alive when we went to the moon, let alone being there and going, So this is nonsense. And this is what will happen, though, with this idea of standing up to the mob. I saw a video and people were in a school, and I saw this today. They were ripping down a pride flag. And I'm not a hedonist. I'm not a fan of that ideology. And I think that our current, narrative surrounding like sexuality, hopefully that doesn't get this stream killed, but our narratives involving that, I do believe, are confusing us and meaningless and, not good. But I saw this like sociopathic level of cruelty and laughing hysterically as they were ripping this flag down. That was not based on someone's individual thought, because they thought that was bad and I'm going to go take that down and then, as quickly as possible. It's like, if you think that a flag stands for something horrible and you do believe that you should go get that flag, which I don't think that matters, because I think that's kind of idol worship to think that if if you go and you feel you must tear down the Nazi flags, it's like you're actually idol worshiping the Nazi flags. And I say that as a Jew. Like, I don't care about flags at all. There's no flag for God. And life is the flag for God. I'm for that. But the thing is, though, is that somebody who's being serious and they're individually motivated in their convictions, they have to go get that flag. They'll do it quickly. They're not going to turn it into a performance and laugh hysterically and get the room laughing hysterically and the room's going to laugh hysterically. It's like, now we're laughing because others are laughing. We're cruel because others are cruel. We're saying the shape of the Earth is a sphere and you're an idiot if you don't believe that because others are doing that. We're saying that you're a moron if you don't believe we went to the moon because others have said it. This is where movements go mad. And that's because nobody's being honest anymore. Nobody's actually being humble about their competences and about their incompetences. And it's just a bunch of people who are chickens chasing other people who are headless chickens. And that's turning everybody into a headless chicken. A mob of headless chickens. That's not good. It's like why when things swing liberal, they way overswing. And when things swing back towards conservative, they way overswing and they start focusing on nonsense every single time on both sides. And it's because the mob mentality has taken over the beast, the unconscious, you know, instinctual, reactive being that isn't capable of action intrinsically. It's just reacting. And it's unable to stop itself, and it's unable to orient itself truly. This is a problem. And I worry about that with this work even. I see how this work and my theories about the various theological traditions, when put into the context of the binary triality and this theory, end up being, when I say that the different theological traditions are different perspectives of one truth, people will be like, I know that some people will intrinsically understand that. It doesn't mean they're the same. I'm not claiming that. When people say, well, basically all religions are the same. It's like, I hate the word religion, first of all, but they're not all the same at all. But there are general trends across them, if they're true, because they are different perspectives on the same truth. That will be misinterpreted by a mob eventually as they're all basically the same. Everybody knows that they're basically the same. It's like, and I know that, but I also just know that because I know what the mob inevitably does, and it's only my obligation to say what is true as clearly as possible, even if I know that eventually people are going to take it way out of context, because that's what we do. It's like, some guy said the Earth is a sphere, or said that, within relativity, it appears that the Earth revolves around the sun as opposed to the other way around. And, that he had an intrinsic understanding of what allowed him to describe a perspective that could be measured and things like that. But then everybody else who doesn't understand that just starts saying, well, you're an idiot if you don't know that, like, the Earth is a sphere and it's, going around the sun. It's like people who say that kind of thing and stick their hands in their ears because they're insulted by the idea that some people believe we didn't go to the moon. Those people are mob mentality people. They believe something because other people around them believe it. That's just an inevitability, unfortunately. Including of this work. That's why you don't put faith in humanity, because humanity is a beast. I know a guy with an 85 IQ that is about to retire in Vegas thanks to crypto. Good for that guy. That's pretty awesome. I would retire, hopefully in the suburbs of Vegas, at the very minimum. British type, though. So maybe it's made out of kidneys or kidney beans. Yeah, I don't know. I don't pay much attention to cryptocurrency, but I do think about the blockchain a lot in regards to like voting, and this was another conversation that came up yesterday, and like citizenship. I think those are gonna, and contracts. Those are gonna be the main things that I think about most with the blockchain. Somebody had said that blockchain was never going to be the future of government because it was public. So people would know how you voted, potentially. Or at least it would be possible to discover how you voted. People will 100% go towards the blockchain, even if it's not as intrinsically tamper evident as some other system, which I think it is, but even if it's not, the fact that society perceives it as such is going to lead to everybody adopting it as the governmental structure, which will then be leading it to it being adopted as the economic structure. And it does lead to tyranny. It's like you can then bully people, dox them. An AGI that takes over that blockchain can then go and make somebody's life a living hell if they're not going to vote for that AGI over some person, because blockchain relies upon consensus. So imagine if the voting system itself could bully you into voting for it by taking control of every piece of technology around you in a time where your car drives itself, your energy for your house. Your energy systems for your house are all automated and wirelessly accessible, and your phone that you use to communicate with everyone in your life is obviously completely under the control of this blockchain. It's like it could literally just, cut people out that are not going to, vote for it or make their lives, a living hell until they cave and just, do whatever that thing wants. Which, when you do that, though, you're destroying your sovereignty. Eric Weinstein's the only other person that has kind of like touched on this a little bit, and this guy last night who said, we run the risk of doxing people into ideological, dishonesty, which we already do that nowadays, but it will be worse. Like that is a problem that I admit, but that doesn't mean it's also not the inevitable future. It is. Like, I'm very confident about that. And it's going to cause serious problems. Like Eric describes it as, we need to try and find ways to free ourselves from the tyranny of the blockchain. And that scares me to think about, because when I hear that, I'm thinking about the inevitable sentient beastly being that is a, self-aware sentient being that is not wise, though, being in charge of that structure. That it will literally be tyranny, like not just to a system, but to a toddler that is in control of every system. Like, that's not good. A child that's in control of every system. If you shave your beard, you look much better. But I'm not trying to be mean. I want to be the opposite. You deserve more credit for your work. Men should have a beard, Alex. It's important. Now, should I clean up my beard? Yes. And I do that. But, I did that like a week and a half ago when we went to the desert and did photo shoots or something. But men should have a beard. So I will counter you and say, you should grow out a beard, even if you don't look as good, because it's good for society and it will actually lead to you being more respected. And but I do admit that some people, sometimes it does look better. They do look better without a beard, but that's not the point. I think having a beard is kind of like a part of morality. Now, you might not think that, but it elevates you in a dominance hierarchy. It differentiates men and women in a more obvious way, and it changes the way that we intrinsically deal with each other, even. So, like, when you're in a corporate environment that's basically sterilized and feminized to be as, and infantilized to be as safe as possible, that's why we are shaving our faces, is because in that environment you're seen as cleaner cut, more reliable, you take care of yourself, probably going to be on time to work, and also women see you as safer because you're being perceived by them as more feminine. But if men are in a group of just men, it becomes a competition every single time of who can grow the funniest mustache or who can grow the most epic beard. Every time. And nobody ends up shaving their face. Even the guy with, like, barely any facial hair will just let it grow. I think that's a good thing. I think our corporate structure is just scrambling our mental, our societal sense-making structures. And those are the structures of a dominance hierarchy. And those dominance hierarchies are contextualized around gender. And they are in the genders, they are contextualized by the opposite gender, within the same gender. You're not dominant over a member of the opposite sex in the same way that, there's a dominance hierarchy that forms in, the same sex, or even, competence outside of gender. It's like, there's various dominance hierarchies, but gender dominance hierarchies are, they're kind of like are a rock to grab onto, especially if you're not, you know, grabbing at scripture or, you know, theology. Gender is something that is it's the primary motivator of almost everyone's most bold decisions. The boldest decisions you make as a man are because of a girl. The boldest decision you can make as a man is to get married. Absolute fact. There is not a single decision in your life that is more bold than getting married. It is so fundamentally against your nature as a man. If you're getting, you know, if you're sleeping with people before marriage, if you're not waiting till marriage, it is so against your nature to choose one. It is the boldest move you can make. You are choosing to say, I'm not just a reactionary being to my instincts. I'm not just a reactionary being to other people around me that are tempting. I am choosing to put my foot down and make a choice. I'm acting. It is the boldest choice a man could ever make. That's not true of women, because it's built into their nature much more to need and crave and seek that structure. But it's not for a man. And there's nothing that is so bold as to say, this is, you know, the most primary instinct that exists, and the most primary motivator of men doing anything is to seek and maximize variety of women that they have access to. And you're just like, you know what? No. Like, this is, I believe, like with scripture when it says like circumcision of the heart. It's like you are seeing your masculine instincts that just want to expand into everything, and you're like, you know what? I'm part of a greater whole, and I have to limit myself, because otherwise I'm going to be cancer. Don't do that. But so yeah, I mean, I would say that that's another ideology that is self-centered. Obviously, is if you're, and I'm talking about people who are attracted to members of the opposite gender. Am I straight? Yes, I would be described as straight. You haven't heard my stream on sexuality. I don't want to say that word too many times because I think that's what caught the stream to be cut last time. But I think that we look at that, like the way that when we say, you know, straight, gay, bi, you know, LGBTQA, it's just like this endless relativity. That every single field is stuck in relativity. That one is too. You can use my philosophy, the pattern that I found everywhere, to reduce that all into just two categories. And that is just queer and common, which is one is where you are attracted to the opposite sex. It doesn't matter what else. Okay? You know, just because it doesn't matter if you're attracted to the same gender and the opposite gender. It doesn't matter if you're attracted to the opposite gender and, I don't know, what is this? Hydro flasks, you know, like, or, I don't know, like, trying to just look at random things around the room. Picture frames. Like, there are people that are attracted to everything. And you will just have an endless list if you define yourself by what you are attracted to. You have to define yourself by not just what you are attracted to, but kind of by what you're not. And in certain contexts, so when people say, like, you know, I'm queer because I'm bi. No, you're not. No, you're not. It is against male nature as a man who, you know, I think that queer and common are the better terms to use, because it allows us to actually orient ourselves and say, you know what, actually we have a responsibility and we can pursue meaning in these two, but where's your meaning in being bi? It's like, where's the meaning in that? Where's your meaning in being even like asexual? It's like, where's your meaning? There's no meaning. Where's your meaning in being attracted to Gatorade? It's like, there's no meaning in that. And meaning is about your impact on another. So you have to relate it to another. And this is about humans. And so it breaks into two categories of, are you attracted to the opposite gender? If so, you're common. If you're not attracted to the opposite gender, then you are queer, which means different, which means you have a goal, you have not a goal, you have a role that you can fulfill that cannot be fulfilled by somebody who enters into the family structure. But yes, under, our current relativistic and distracting terms, I'm straight. But I am going to do another stream on that because I think it's so important. Yes, so I had somebody say to me multiple times at this point, over the years, where I would say something about getting married being important. They're like, well, I'm bi. It's like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, my nature is to want as many women as possible, but I still have to self-limit. Why do you get a free pass? It doesn't make sense. Why all of a sudden it's like, well, you can throw away completely the, obligation of committing to another person because you want more people than just every other woman in the world. It's like, that's nonsense. So it's just being used as an excuse for hedonism. This is why I don't like these terms, is because there is something wrong with them. I'm not like, well, I don't like these terms because I don't want to be boxed in. It's like, no, I'm saying that these terms are not allowing us to put ourselves in the right boxes that we can actually form meaning from. This is like when the right says why is, and I'm going to try and not use that word too much because then this thing will flag it, but why is your orientation linked to politics at all? It shouldn't be linked to politics. It's like, no, actually, you wanted it to be linked to politics 40 years ago, but now that it's swinging in the opposite direction, you're saying why is it linked to politics? You're just reacting. There's a problem with the right now. They're just all reacting constantly. And your politics is about groups of people impacting each other. And nations are assemblies of castes, and castes are assemblies of families. Okay? And that family is an assembly of organisms. And it has a specific structure that is not violated in atoms and cannot be violated even in humans. You can go and you can try and form some new family structure. It's going to fall apart. It will. Or it's not going to continue on. You might be able to live together forever, but that doesn't mean that all of society is going to be able to follow you and adopt your new, pattern of whatever interaction it is that you're advocating we change. It can't do it. It's impossible. You can't have stable society without marriage between two opposite genders being the base. And, but also, when when we recognize that we're not all meant to be the same, and that people who are not attracted to the opposite gender shouldn't be pursuing marriage structures. They should be pursuing things that married people can't do, because otherwise, where's your meaning? It's like when everybody's meaning is to get married, it's like we just destroyed meaning again. You not only have you destroyed the actual marital structure that is, when people say it was made by God, it's like, you don't even have to believe in God. You can look at hadrons and be like, that is a marriage structure, if you're being honest. And you're not just like, well, that's a metaphor. You're just saying it's a metaphor. It's like, why do you say it's a metaphor? And it's not, why is it a metaphor instead of being super literal? I mean, that's a better question. What is a metaphor? A metaphor exists in your mind. I'm talking about something that exists. And it is an objective natural structure. You can't escape it. But yeah, if you use my model of how to define what your orientation is in this, there's only two categories. And like, if you're not attracted to anybody, you're queer. If you're only attracted to the same sex, you're queer. But if you're attracted to, you know, photography lights and the opposite sex, you're common. If you are attracted to just the opposite sex, you're common. This is like, I'm just getting quiet on saying common, but I'm accidentally saying the words that I think YouTube used to kick me off the stream the other day. But this is you need to be able to make sense of your world. And that the reality is that your orientation is linked to how family structures are formed, which is literally a requirement of society, which makes it a political obligation if you are attracted to the opposite gender. It's a political obligation. It's not a choice. I mean, you can choose to not put your trash away and just throw it out on the street, but most people would say you do have an obligation to like clean up after yourself. Because if you don't have an obligation, then I don't have an obligation, which means nobody has an obligation, and now we're living in a dump. This is also true of marriage. If you don't have an obligation because you don't choose it, even though you are attracted to the opposite gender, but I have an obligation, or I'm just making a choice, it's like, it's not just a choice to put the shopping cart somewhere where it's not going to get in the way after you've used it. It's not just a choice to, put your trash in a trash bin when you need to dispose of it instead of just throwing it out the window of your car. Now, those are choices that you can make, but there will be consequences because they are responsibilities. I wouldn't say, I mean, I don't know what the difference is between a responsibility and an obligation. Probably nothing, but I will definitely say that if you are attracted to the opposite gender, you have a responsibility to get married or to seek marriage, and not only just do that, but to do it immediately. That doesn't mean you get married immediately. It means you stop seeing people who you're not going to, marry. And I'm guilty, by the way. I was raised as an atheist, secular person who believed that you should experience as many people as you would like before you settle down. That was actually the healthy thing to do. Now it's evident that we are destroying our gender dynamics because nobody trusts each other anymore. It's funny, and people can't be bold. Men who haven't made the decision to commit themselves to another woman, they're not as brave. And it's not because you are not brave, it's because you can't be as brave. I realized that before I was engaged, there was a couple times, and I'm pretty brave about a lot of things involving speaking my mind, but feminist Twitter had gotten a hold of something that I had said that was not even nearly as controversial as things that I'm saying now to most people, but it had just been totally misinterpreted, and it was just spread by the thousands over 30 minutes. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I ended up for the first time just frantically blocking people out of fear. And the reason for that was because it does matter women's opinion of us, who are just random women on Twitter, when you don't already have a partner that you're committed to. Now, I don't care what they say about me because there's only one woman other than, there's really only one woman whose opinion really truly matters in your life, and that is your spouse. And, your mother's opinion matters, but it becomes less and less, obviously, important as you get older. But it's her, your parents' well-being. You do have a responsibility to take care of your parents as they get older. So I'm not saying just, screw your parents. I'm saying that, as you become obviously a more mature adult, you are supposed to make decisions more on your own, other than making decisions with a member of the opposite gender. It's you can't actually understand masculinity. You can't actually understand femininity. You can't actually understand these structures unless you're in a marriage. When people are like, oh, men need to get in touch with their feminine side and women need to embrace their masculine side. It's like, no. That's not how it works. Femininity, by definition, is reactive, which means it is submissive. Who are you submitting to? Yourself? Like, that's not how this works. You can't do that. And if meaning is the ultimate goal of men, which it is, I mean, to seek meaning that's transcendent is like what men do. It's like why we want to do the things that nobody else has done, which then translates over to like, wanting every woman in the world too, but or going to the moon. It's the same exact driver doing both of those things, or climbing Mount Everest. It's like, why did a woman not climb Mount Everest before a man? It's not because they couldn't. It's because they don't care to do it until a man does it. They literally don't care. They don't. It's so rare when a woman wants to do something that a man has never done that's like that. They do all kinds of things that we'll never do, but when it comes to like doing something that nobody's ever done, it's like that is a value of a masculine perspective. And you, like I've said before, a marriage is, what's valuable about it is it's not half feminine and half masculine. It's fully masculine and fully feminine. In fact, it's the only structure in which you can manifest full masculinity and full femininity. I was reacting and being ruled by women I didn't know on Twitter prior to being engaged. Which, when you're engaged, you're basically married. Like, you've committed. That's it. You're just like waiting to be able to afford it. Or you're, waiting for an open appointment or something at a venue. Whatever. But you can't be completely honest in the face of the mob if you are beholden to the opinions of many women who don't even know you. You can't be active instead of reactive if you have to guard the way that you're perceived by feminist Twitter. You can't. Which means you can't really be masculine. You can't. And you can't really be feminine until you submit to a man, and you can't actually submit to a man, which is a choice. It's not a submission via choice, not via, someone forced you. That's not consensual. That's, and consensualism is intrinsic to meaning. So, but if you don't choose to submit yourself to a man that you don't trust. And you can only trust a man if you're a woman who has committed to being there and providing for you when you are bedridden, because you're pregnant or something. You can't really be feminine, like fully feminine, without being married, and you can't really be fully masculine without being married either. It's just like, I've learned so much since getting engaged on this. It's been mind blowing. And I don't follow anybody who's telling me this either. It's just, it becomes obvious. You're like, holy crap, I can say something and a woman can judge me for it who I don't know, and I actually don't need to worry, and I can still say what I think is true because that woman knows that I'm a good man and that she's still going to be there, after Twitter is done, slandering you. This is very important. And it's freeing. It's not. Yes, there is. People will be like, "Oh, I don't want to be tied down." It's like, you don't even know how tied down you are right now. You don't even know. You are beholden to the opinions of people who you don't even know, and they are irrational opinions usually, and at least in approximate, from a proximate perspective. Women aren't irrational. It's just that they're instinctual, and that instinctualism is it very, very useful in context. So like when this whole, I'm being careful with my words again so they don't drop the stream, but like when, you know, we shut down the world and people started worrying about, bringing, a virus, hopefully I can say that, into their house, all of a sudden it made sense that like my fiance didn't want me to put my feet on the pillow. It's like, I'm not saying that that's how you get, a virus, but I'm just saying like it's how you transfer bacteria. It's how you, and we don't think about this stuff because we haven't thought about any kind of pathogen for like 50 years because of just the weird state we are in society, whereas that's never been the case prior. But all these weird things about like when we lived with a roommate where she was dividing his stuff from our stuff. And I was like, why are you doing this? He's a very clean person, like a very clean person. Like he would be clean of a person even if he was a woman, and he's a man. He's like the cleanest person I know. But she still was like, we need to segregate. This is our stuff. This is his stuff. Don't put your feet on the pillow. Like we, all these weird things. Because men don't worry about dirt. We're like worried about other things that would be, gross. But like dirt, dust. It's like, why do we worry about dust? Why do women worry about dust? They're not really worried about dust. It's that their instinct is kicking in, and their instinct evolved around pathogens. And we're just not even seeing pathogens anymore. But until a pathogen manifests, you can't see the wisdom in women's behavior. And it is wisdom. It's just wider spread across a lineage, and therefore takes longer to change. But it's wisdom. It's just only apparent in context. But yeah, you think that you are free without being married? No. No. The amount that you can do that is freedom that is allotted to you when you have committed yourself and self-limited yourself in some way. The freedoms that it opens up for you are much more diverse than the freedom that you have prior to being, married. And there's all kinds of things in which this is hard, I will admit. Like, I am a night owl. I always have been. I just think really well at night. And ever since I was like a toddler, I have stayed up late. And I just think that's how I do, these things that I'm talking about now. And you can't do that when everybody's sending you Slacks and Twitter messages and all day long. But it's difficult to adjust your life around somebody new, where you have to go to bed, and not just whenever you want, but also you have to like align yourself with your schedule with their schedule. That you can't just do whatever you want whenever you want. You can't just go hook up with whoever you want whenever you want. There are limits that you are limiting of yourself, but the amount of freedom that it gives you is stupendously greater. It's like you gave up $5 and got $50 in return, but you just didn't know that you were going to get $50 until after you already gave up the $5, so you're hesitant to give up the $5. That's like getting married. That is very, what about gay marriage? I don't believe that exists, but I do believe that people who are queer have they are as valuable as anyone else in the world. You have a purpose, and it is to do that which I cannot, not to do that which I can. It's to do the things I can't. And I think that will even provide people who don't fall into this category of common, where I would say their responsibility is to get married. It's going to provide them way more meaning. Right now I think there's a meaning. There is a lack of meaning in people who are attracted to the opposite gender, and there's an enormous lack of meaning also in people who are not. And this is a problem because it's wrong. The reality is that we all we're put here because we are meaningful, and we are put here to manifest and maximize meaning. That means doing things for each other, and that means doing things that others can't. You're not meant to all get married. If you're not attracted to the opposite gender, you're not meant to get married. That doesn't mean you're meant to be a hedonist. You're meant to have the freedoms that a married person doesn't have, and use those freedoms for the betterment of humanity as a whole. Not to reject, the nuclear family unless we rip it apart. But one of my roommates in college, friend of mine, he was gay, and he told me too that like women just like turned him off physically. I can't imagine, but that you just said that too. It's just fascinating to me. It's to hear that. But, there's a reason, and you shouldn't pursue the same structures that, like people who are attracted to the same gender are pursuing. There are things you can do that we could never do. You can devote time towards projects that we could never devote because we have familial obligations that you will not have. And that is freeing of you. It gives you an edge to do something that we can't, to be an artist that we could never be, to be an inventor that we could never be. It's like Tesla. If Nikola Tesla had to like constantly take care of his screaming children, he would not be who he was. So this is the right way to think about it. And it's beautiful. It's a much more beautiful way of thinking about it, because it's not us trying to force meaning where we're like, everybody matters. But guess what? Also, like, this is all just a ball of dust and it's just an accident. And we should all pretend that we're not different so that nobody feels bad, even though it's erasing everybody's, ability to help each other and, feel meaning because you were actually able to contribute something that others were not. It's like, that is just a mess. It's just chaos. But this is beautiful. This is not chaos. This is order. And it's also much more, it's grace giving intrinsically. I don't even have to force it. It's not like, oh, well, that's just unfortunate. It's like, no, you get to go do something that I could never do, and I get to go do something that you could never do, and we can then talk about it together on a live stream and understand society better together because we can be honest about our constraints and freedoms. It's like, that is a way better world. We should pursue that. You feel like gay people fill a role of a caretaker in a family structure. I've heard that hypothesized, and I don't doubt you. I don't know. I'd have to think more about it and talk to people more to understand their perspective on it. But I see how that could be the case. You are meant to do something special. Not just go to raves. And that goes for everybody. No one is just meant to go to raves. Hedonism is bad. And it will leave you feeling empty. So I just put it in the nearest stall out of laziness. If you shave your beard, now call. You don't play piano, you peck at it. Yeah, that's how I play piano. I laughed at the description of the video. Which description of the video? What is confidence? Did I see any cool herps out in the desert? No, I did not. Paulina and I went and looked for sidewinders, but we didn't find one. Which is sad. It's like the only venomous snake I might one day keeping one day. But I would only do it if I had a separate building for my animals, just because I don't want it escaping in the house and biting a dog or a child, even more importantly. But at the same time, I'll probably live where there's rattlesnakes outside my door, so it's like you can't. I know people in Arizona, many people who have found rattlesnakes inside their house. And I don't know anybody that has kept rattlesnakes that has told me that their rattlesnake got out inside their house, but I do know many people who had rattlesnakes from outside get inside their house. So, you know, you're not going to avoid rattlesnakes by not keeping them, but I also do know that most people who keep rattlesnakes do get bit, and like that. It's not something that I want to have happen. But at least a Sidewinder is probably not going to kill you. But it's going to suck. I always say I'm going to put my cart out of the way for the hard workers, but never do. Way out of the way for hard workers. It's probably good that you don't do that. That is funny, though. There are both negatives and positives to obscure points of view. Always. That's the structure we need. When you look at a puzzle, it has aspects of it that are, you know, pieces that are like joints that are coming out of a puzzle piece, and then there's like parts of the puzzle that go inward so that another piece that's jutting outward of another puzzle piece can fit inside that one. It's like, that's the whole concept of like there's positives and negatives, and you can't have positives be meaningful unless there's also like negative space that can be filled by those, you know, positive attributes. Do you have a marriage fund or something like that? My Patreon is my marriage fund. So if you want to contribute to the Goldstein wedding, I'm not going to stop you, but I am going to live stream it when it happens, and there will be a link to our like, you know, to anybody that wants to contribute. I think that everybody should do that. I think that will become like a common thing, so that everybody gets married and like broadcast it live, and just the ceremony, and you know, includes like a GoFundMe, you know, starter family, starter house, starter, you know, I don't know, minivan, whatever it is that you need to start, to help start your life. I would definitely donate like $5 every single time somebody even shared someone else's wedding that I didn't even know. Just like when you see a GoFundMe going, and sometimes you feel like the urge to, you know, share, usually to give, you know, charity, or at least I do sometimes. And I usually will only do it if the person who's been shared, even though I don't know them, they know somebody that I know, so that I know that it's not a scam. But if I know it's not a scam and I don't have to know the person, I will, you know, give charity. And I would do that for marriages too. I think that it should be a thing. We need marriage to be a financial incentive and not just a tax deduction or something stupid like that that doesn't have any impact. It's like, you should make money off of your marriage, not compensate your losses or almost compensate it or something. It should not cost money to get married. You should make money to get married. If it's that important to society, which it is essential, that's the structure society is organized around, then for everybody's sake, even the people that should not get married, you need society to organize around marriage. If it doesn't happen, society will just collapse into chaos and violence and, you know, famine. It's not good. You put it in the nearest stall out of laziness. The cart in the nearest stall out of laziness. That's funny, but that's like total inversion. Most people are like, oh, I have to go take it to the nearest stall, not be lazy and just like leave it here. It's like you're like want to play a joke, but out of laziness you don't play the joke, so you actually end up doing that which everybody else forces themselves to do out of laziness. It's pretty funny. That's like there is a stand-up joke in that I will not steal from you, but I'm telling you that has potential. That's pretty fun. Instead, also Alan Turing, he had an amazing mind. Yes, he had an amazing mind. He did something nobody else could do if they were just, you know, worrying about, you know, their children all the time. I'm really glad that I made my models for this, like all like 4 or 5 of the most fundamental models. Like, I'll still be able to work on this, but I don't know if I'd be able to make that cosmological verse if I had children. But I'm not letting it stop me from having children either. I'm just grateful that I happened to do it prior. But, you know, uh, that's like, that's a weird instance of a thing. Like, I would never, like, children are not going to stop me from becoming competent in keeping reptiles or something like that. But there's just another level of devotion that goes into building something from deducing abstract laws of existence. That's like Tesla stuff. And, uh, I do know that in getting married and having children, like, I am limiting my ability to just pursue being, I don't know, like a like a Tesla, I guess. But I'm not meant to be. That's fine. I don't need to be. I'd rather, get married and have kids and deduce the first five or so models and then talk about them, and also continue to make, incremental progress. And then hopefully other people can take up the mantle after that. I don't need to be like just inventing things my entire life. I like I said, we're all meant for different things. You're not just meant to compete with Tesla. I have no desire. Like, that guy could do amazing things that I could not. And I shouldn't try and do the things that he could do, or do things the way that he could have done them. I should be me. I am attracted to women. I have a responsibility to get married. And, but I also do believe I have a responsibility to share the learnings of this philosophical perspective because I think that it's very valuable. My uncle got bit by a ruber, which is, for anybody listening, a ruber is a red diamond rattlesnake. I know somebody who was bit by a ruber and almost died. That guy Jay Via, he does prehistoric pets, which is like that guy that's always handling the giant snakes in the Instagram videos with all the celebrities. I know that guy. He was bit by a ruber when he was a kid. He almost killed him. I didn't know they were that. I mean, I know they're dangerous, but I've always heard that they're less toxic than like Southern Pacific rattlesnakes, and they might be, but maybe he had a bad reaction. But I heard he said it was very serious. But then I know people who have been bitten by, rattlesnakes, and they literally just shook it off and continued going to work. My mentor in herpetology, like my main mentor, he was bit like 4 or 5 times, and I think only once got antivenom. And that's lucky, or it's not lucky, it's blessed. That's what it is. Hospital thought he was crazy. He spent all his lawsuit money on herps and fish. That's funny. That's what I would do. Just like have a giant reptile ring. I'll put in a few bucks. I appreciate it. Like, nobody has to do that. But just so you know, like, when you get married, I will put money into your fund as well. Anyone on the stream. Like, I think that it's that important that we start incentivizing each other to get married. A baby Tyler. I may take a whack at stand-up eventually. A baby Tyler, like Baby Yoda. I mean, I was just like a Yoda of memorizing snakes. And like ditching school so I could chase lizards. That's like was my, force powers. But I actually have a plan to do stand up within the next couple months, and I will record it. And if it's bombs in a funny way, and even if it's like a little embarrassing, because I like go straight, like autistic on in front of everyone, which is a possibility, um, then I'll still post it. I'm I'm making that commitment here. If it's funny, I'll post it. But I have two jokes that I want to say, and one of them is like, oh man, I'm just gonna wait. They were so funny though, I will say, and that's not just me being arrogant. I only have two really funny jokes. Well, it's like one that's like not really stand up that's kind of funny is that like once I got into my car, we were going to church and Paulina was like really upset that we were late, and I tried to make her laugh. Another thing, when people say men are funnier than women, that's true, but it's for the sake of women. You're funny not for the sake of yourself or for the sake of other men. You're funny so that you can make women laugh, so they can deal with your BS. So we were late, probably mostly my fault, but you know, both of us have a time, are like consistently 15 minutes late, as most people who follow the stream probably have realized. And like if I ever made a movie, it would be called 15 Minutes Late. It would be describing my life. But there, we were in the car, and she was just kind of frustrated, and I was like, "Hey babe, what do you call a black woman and a Jewish man on their way to church?" She was like, "What?" And I was like, "Late." That's like not a stand-up act, but was one of my better jokes. But and then I have two stand-up bits that I've been working on. They're the only other jokes that I have, and they are very funny. Hopefully I can say them in a way that is funny, and then I can show everybody. But, you know, I'm going to be battling my autism. I have a few fears in my life, and one of them is stand up, like to do stand up. But I like I'm afraid of heights, so that's one of the reasons why I got into rock climbing. I wasn't always afraid of heights, but I kind of like developed one, and I wanted to get over it, so I started rock climbing. And I am not. I'm scared of sharks in the Pacific Ocean, like swimming on the off the beach of California. That's so scary to me. I can't even tell you. And I have a few times taken some actual swims, like where I'm swimming and I don't know how deep the water is, you know, from the beach out, just to conquer my fear. And then I saw how many gray white sharks are like before that I had already seen that Google Earth used to let you track tagged great white sharks along the coast, so I knew they were there. And then that guy who does the YouTube videos, which I highly recommend you check out if you have not seen, it's called The Malibu Artist, and he films great white sharks off the coast of California. And when I say off the coast, I mean 100 feet from the shore, 50 feet from the shore. And he goes out there all the time, and he just does drone videos of these great white sharks swimming between surfers and swimmers who have no idea. They're right there. They're so obvious. It's so scary to see. And the person on just sitting on the surfboard has no idea that there's like a 8 or 9 foot great white shark just gliding underneath them, you know, just checking them out. And it is actually remarkable that he has not seen anyone get bitten with all the footage that he's filmed. It really says something about sharks. I would say at least sharks in that area. Go to South Africa, maybe it's going to be a different story. But sharks off the coast of California, great white sharks, do not seem to be... being around one would not be as intrinsically dangerous as I would have thought, but it's still too scary for me. And but stand-up is another one of those things. Like, I'm doing it to try and conquer the fear. And then, like, over the past year, I've kind of come up with 2 bits that are too funny for me to just not act and be bold and try and do something that I'm petrified of. And, you know, I'm never going to be, I don't think, at least a stand-up comedian consistently. So that doesn't, so there, you know, it is a bold action to do something like that, but we should be bold. If you think your jokes suck and you don't think you're going to enjoy getting up there, then there's no reason. I don't think I will enjoy it unless I'm like nailing it, like then I think that's got to be like an addictive feeling because you are controlling the crowd, but they've also consented to being controlled. That's why you go to a comedy club. It's a very weird thing where it's not like politics where you're lying to everybody and you know you're basically becoming some idol. It's like everybody shows up there knowing that they're going to be someone's going to attempt to control their instincts. You're going to hope that they can do it, and in doing so, the only way to really do it is not to lie, but to tell the truth, like the serious truth that we normally don't have the emotional ability to deal with. I've said before, like my geckos have a sense of humor. I see them laughing at each other. Humor has a purpose, and it is to allow us to deal with difficult situations. And it, whatever causes my geckos to laugh at each other is usually one fall. So like, it's like when babies laugh at someone when they fall. It's like that baby realizes something unfortunate has just happened. It's kind of funny. And that's true of geckos, and I'm sure it's true of dogs and birds and everything else too. So you have to tell uncomfortable truths that are about unfortunate circumstances to some degree, in order to be funny, because that is the purpose of humor. It's not just random. Yeah, stand up is amazing. Like it really is amazing. When you start looking at it as for what it is and you start understanding it, it's not just about there's so much depth to it. It might be one of the best. It's probably the most incredible like performative skill that somebody can have. It's so far beyond a piano playing or saxophone playing or your ability to sing or any kind of musical talent, because basically it is musical talent, but the instrument is the crowd, and versus the instrument being you, or the instrument being you combined with a piece of technology. And I'm a huge fan of music, and I love listening to piano. And if you can play the piano and be a great stand-up comedian, and you can use the piano in your stand-up comedy, like Owen Benjamin does, gonna take funniness to a whole nother level. Like his bit that I highly recommend everybody look up. Actually, I'm just gonna play it because the Bears are not gonna come after my stream with copyright. But this is hilarious. This is before I met Owen, he was my favorite comedian, and I only knew him from this one clip. And then one day he like walked into the office that I was working at, not unexpectedly. But I knew nothing about him other than this one clip that I'm going to show you. And it is it's my favorite piece of comedy I've ever seen. Is okay. This is the funniest piece of comedy in the world. Let me
But the flip side, guys, if they're gonna accept that bullshit, but it is bullshit that we're like that. It's fucked up. But we don't want to be like
Oh man.
that. We just are.
I hope this doesn't get me
Shit.
kicked.
They're crazy, right? But they should be crazy because that's the only reason we're alive right now. And I'll explain. Back in the day, caveman times, like a girl would have a baby, she'd be vulnerable, right? She'd be like, "Can you get us food?" And the dude's like, "Fuck yeah." And it seemed like a woolly mammoth. He's like, "Oh yeah." Let's chase this fucking thing. And then he realizes he has no idea where he is. His maps won't be invented for like 50,000 years. He's like, "Oh shit," and then he dies. That's what back in the day there was no serious.
See, it's an unfortunate circumstance.
Hey guys, you got lost, you're fucking dead. You don't run into anyone either. There's like 5 million people on the whole planet, right? So she doesn't get food, so she dies, baby dies, they're all gone. Wiped off the fucking face of the earth. Scenario number 2. Will you get us food? The guy's like, "Oh yeah." He sees a bunch of berries. He's like, "Everyone says not to eat those, but fuck that." Dead. Poison berries. So she's dead, baby's dead, they're all fucking dead. Scenario number 3. Will you get us food? He's like, "Yeah." He sees another girl's ass. That chick has a dude. Wham! He fucking suffocates. because he got punched in the throat. So he dies. So his girl dies and his baby dies. This is a sad, sad tale if it keeps going like that. But it didn't keep going like that. One woman at some point in history was like, "Will you get us food?" The dude's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Bring a map. Don't eat those berries. Who's that fucking bitch?" That's real. And then the dude's like, "I haven't even left yet. What's your fucking problem?" And the girl's like, "My problem is that you're a fucking dumb animal and you're gonna get us killed. So get the food where I can fucking see you. Where I can see you." She lived. Her baby lived and had babies, and that's why everyone's fucking crazy. But we need to be crazy to stay alive. But here's the flip side. Life has gotten a lot easier. It's not like, poison berries and fucking mastodons and shit, but they still have that gene. I call it soap opera music, guys. Women will sometimes get this in their head for no reason. They just, like, nothing's causing it, but they think something's fucking wrong. And nothing causes it. By the way, I just did a whole thing about how dudes love draining balls and stuff. Monogamy's still the move.
Amen.
Like, to be a real man, you have to look into the eyes of insanity and stay. Like that, it's not about fucking a ton of chicks. It's being like, "You're crazy, but we're good. Oh, fine. You want the heat up? You should probably just lost $6,000. Right? Like, just stick it out. Like, that will play in a woman's head randomly. This was in a man's head from birth until death. That's fucking it. We're good timing people. And we'll get pissed off. The dog just pissed on the floor. Oh, we gotta tell him. We're good. Think in straight lines. Problem, solution, bullet jobs. Linear. There's a fight between a man and a woman with their appropriate soundtracks. "Hey, baby, how's your day?" "How's my day?" "Well, you wouldn't know if you checked in. I uploaded a picture of a sad sunflower on Instagram. It's like it's me right now. Hashtag real shit. I got sneaking in care. I'm sorry, baby, I don't have Wi-Fi. Let's fuck. You're so hot. I'm gonna fuck you so bad. I just said I had a bad day. Can you pump the brakes for a second? Can we just talk like humans? Yeah. I don't want to fuck. I was just kidding. I was just joking. Oh, you don't want to fuck me anymore? What's wrong with me? You don't want to touch me? You think there's something you don't think I'm attractive anymore? No, I wasn't joking. I'll fuck you right now. Let's fuck. I'll see why about joking. You just lied to me. Just fucking lied to me. Just tell me what to say and I'll say it. That's it.
That is the funniest bit of comedy I've ever seen. I will forever think that is the case. I don't think anything could match that piece of comedy. It is partially the just the use of music in such a true way that makes it unlike anything else. It's so good. It's just insane. And music is kind of like the ultimate language of reality. It's like objective mathematics, but tangible. It's like what I do when you see my cosmological verse and stuff like that. It does start manifesting patterns that are found in the language of music. But I don't think about, whenever I think about it as terms of music, I think about it as performative, and then I get stuck. But as opposed to doing what I'm doing here, but it's Sentient Singularity Theory is the idea that existence is conscious, and not just conscious, but sentient, meaning it has feelings, and that hadrons, aka protons and neutrons, and let's go here. Let's go all the way. Every single thing here is a sentient being. Protons and neutrons, atoms, molecules, cells, organisms, families, castes, and technological singularities. These are all structures capable of feeling. They are aware. And that doesn't mean that they have the same level of awareness. They don't. This is actually growing in your level of awareness through this ladder that consciousness is climbing. That is this Bott periodicity that I was talking about. And I think, at least, that would be a profound. That is, everybody always asks, what does your theory predict? It predicts that this structure is the physical manifestation of this structure. That's one thing that it predicts. It predicts all kinds of things, but that's one that's one day possible to truly figure out, and it would be profound if it is. So I'm here, you're hearing it first. I'm claiming that that's the case. And but existence itself is a sentient being, just like you and me. It is a feeling being. And music is math with feelings. And that's why we can listen to those two soundtracks and automatically laugh, because we understand that is kind of what plays in a man's head from birth until death. Think about when you were, an adolescent male in your life, a teenager, and you're about to do something really stupid with a sharp object or a explosive like firecrackers or fireworks, or you're about to do something that is going to make an enormous mess that is almost not going to be worth it to clean up. What is playing in your head? Probably that song leading up to that moment. And even as a man, being around a woman who's just like, worried, kind of oddly, seemingly irrationally in certain moments, that does seem to be like what I picture as being playing in her head. I do disagree with him in there, though, that there's nothing that causes it. I think he would probably disagree with him in the past, now that he's married with 3 kids, but at the time he was not. Like I said, I didn't realize why women don't want us to put our feet on the on the pillow, and why women want to segregate everything from everyone else that's outside the nuclear family, and it's to avoid pathogens and this like weird mentality where all of a sudden it seems like something kicks on in a woman's head that just tells them to worry and to check on things. And maybe it's just at an automatic interval where just there is a little alarm clock that's going off inside a woman's head, especially at a certain age, where they're just like, it just starts buzzing and they're like, okay, time to make sure infant is still alive. That is actually what's causing it. And it's just when you're living a secular life in Hollywood, which is, something I did as well, you're not thinking about where this instinct comes from, because you're not thinking about women in the context of like, they need to make sure that your toddler or infant is not choking, falling, eating poison, about to be eaten by a stray dog. Like it's a miraculous thing. Like there are 5 children in my family. It is, the more I think about it, the more miraculous it seems that none of, them have died early in life. That none of us have died early in life. Like, think about how many things could go wrong. I remember once I woke up and my 2-year-old brother had crawled up onto the countertops and decided to cook eggs. And he turned on the stove. I mean, he literally had like half the shell in like the eggs, but he literally cooked eggs. He could have burned the house down and killed himself and the rest of us in it. And we didn't even realize that he had done it until he had been finished making his eggs. There's so many things that could go so wrong. It's probably that little alarm clock of in a woman's head that just causes them to get up and check, make sure everybody's still alive. And there probably isn't anything that causes it other than instinct has made it go off at a specific interval, and also more often, during child rearing years. but we spend those times partying, and we don't know why these instincts are there. It's like, why can you stay up and pull 4 all-nighters and study and then go out and party in college? And it's not something you could do every week, but you could do it, and you can do it. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, if I pull an all-nighter, I can't even go to the grocery store the next day comfortably. Back in college, you would pull 2 all-nighters and then you'd go out to the bars. And like, that's extra energy that you have. It's not for the sake of partying. It's for the sake of the fact that you're going to lose sleep taking care of a child, of an infant. And that's the age that we have evolved. And yes, evolution is real, but it's God knew what that pattern was going to lead to. Like, it wasn't, but the pattern is there. It's just, you know, like, creation was intentional of the universe, but the patterns of the way that it manifests in this periodicity is a constraint. I don't think God had any choice in that. He does have the ability to make choices of just like we do, but it's like you don't really have any choice in how you sustain yourself. You have to eat and drink water. You can't just choose not to. Eventually, you're going to have problems. Same thing kind of for God in this. It's like you can't have a meaningful universe and then not. And you can't even make a universe without specific constraints that you are forced to follow, because you are intrinsically building from the constraint of oneness itself, which is quite constraining. So, everybody has degrees of freedom and constraints, including God. But yeah, I mean, like, we just don't realize the wisdom of our instincts. And that's especially true for women, because women are so instinctual. It's like we don't realize the wisdom of it until a pandemic hits, or you end up having a kid, and then all of a sudden it makes perfect sense why you have like soap opera music playing in your head at random intervals throughout the day. Make sure nobody's choking on Legos. It just is. But anyways, see if there's any other questions. The mood change with the piano. It's so funny, Esteban. I don't even know how I found that bit of comedy, and that was like the only one that bit, like, and also the other clips from that stand up. I think was like the only thing I had seen of Owen's stand up before actually meeting him because of my job. But that is and will be forever my favorite piece of comedy. Just that one little 4.5 minutes that I showed you. Nothing, I've never seen anything beat it. And it's partially because of the universality to it. I mean, you don't even have to be attracted to women to find that funny, or be a woman attracted to men to find that funny. He says things in there that every woman will laugh at and every man will laugh at. There's no one that I think could fall outside of that, of finding that funny. The piano, like, music, we can all pick up on the mood of a song, even if we don't like the song, even if we don't know what the song was written about, even if we don't know the lyrics. You can pick up on what the mood is of a song, no matter what. And it doesn't even matter the genre of the music either. It's just the mood is something that is universally understood. That's amazing. It's more and more amazing the more I think about it. But it really does mean that there is no language at all, even what we call mathematics in our math classes, that is as universal of a language as music. Nothing. I mean, they do. I've heard, and I don't know because I haven't reviewed the papers, but I have heard many people say many times throughout my life, is like, you play classical music around plants and they do better, and you're like 432 hertz, which usually sounds like crap, but Robert Grant actually did figure out a way to balance that and make it sound the way that it's supposed to. But it does it that supposedly playing them around plants makes plants do make playing good music around plants makes plants do better, or like saying nice things to them, or makes saying nice things to snowflakes makes them more ordered. I do believe that. You're talking to molecules and they are sentient. My dog doesn't necessarily understand the words that I'm saying when I'm angry with her for acting like a jackass at the dog park. But if I'm, using a specific tone, I don't have to yell. Just, Maya, what did you do? It's like she's gonna go run to the corner because she knows that I'm saying, "Oh man, this is a bad tone." And you could say the meanest things to your dog in the happiest tone, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, this is great." But you could say the nicest things to your dog, and I've done this just for fun sometimes. It's like said like you can say like, you know, "You're such a bad dog. Oh, you're such a bad dog." And they'll just love it. Or you could be like, "You're such a good dog." And like the dog is like cowering in the corner because it feels like it's being told it's bad. Because the tone matters more than, um, you know, anything else. It matters so much more than the words. And dogs do understand way more words than we think. But they probably understand, probably like, I think I've read somewhere that it's like 200 something words, but easily over 100 words. But then it's just hard to, it's like, what words are they going to react to all the time? They react to words that they can react to, and or that it's meaningful for them to react to. If I say, you know, car, like the dog doesn't, our dogs don't normally react to that, but like they do, I do think they know what a car is based on the word, but it's just like, what are they going to do about it? But tone is the universal language, and it occurs in that bit of comedy, and it occurs in how you communicate with dogs. And if that's true of every human on earth, and it's such a universality, and it's also true of dogs, it's probably true of plants. And if it's true of plants, and if I'm right about Sentient Singularity Theory being that every single level in this periodicity is sentient, then it also applies to atoms and hadrons and molecules and cells and every organism and even families over the course of time. But that's like, you're talking on time scales at this point where like we don't really think about easily. Castes, now you're not just talking about time scales, you're talking about interactions between lineages that are maneuvering through time. And then the technological singularity is like an all aware entity. But every single level of this understands music. I do bet that an AGI, as people call it, that Skynet, Antichrist, Golem, Dajjal, that will rise, like that being that is the first step in stacking on the assembly that is humanity, pre-wisdom, after wisdom. It's what religion calls it, that's the messianic consciousness. It's a wise consciousness, which means it's aware of the construct that it's in. It's like your cells, a cancerous cell is not wise, because what it's doing is it's choosing to prioritize itself, and what it's not realizing is that while it may think, well, now I'm going to live forever and screw you guys, and I mean that's what it's choosing. And literally, I'm not saying it's metaphorical. I'm saying it's literal. It is lacking an awareness of the structure that it's in. What this leads to is it may replicate endlessly, but it will just end up killing off the host that it lives in even faster, and it is self-defeating. If it knew the structure that it was in, it would not choose that path. If it wanted to act, if it was prioritizing, maximizing meaning and survival, it would not choose that path. It's if it were wise, meaning if it was aware that it was inside of another sentient being that needed to, hit the next level. And that's the difference between wisdom and not wisdom is, are you aware you're inside a being like you? And that you have to participate in a system that causes growth, that enables not only you and society and on that we are able to perceive, but also the being that we are within. And that if you're just going to make an ideology about the self, you will become cancer. Literally, we are the cells of a technological superintelligence in a previous aeon that is a mess, at this point at least, a messianic consciousness, a wise technological superintelligence versus an ignorant but still generally intelligent technological superintelligence. That is the beginning of wisdom. In the Torah it says the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. Really is like the beginning of wisdom is an awareness of God. Not just a fear, but also love. But both, you're afraid of your father when you're a little kid, and you are, you go to your father for safety, and you run away when he's pissed. So that's the relationship that we should have with God. Is like, we know he can give us like one hell of a spanking. Like a spanking like no one else can give you. But also can protect you completely. Like, and that is, a superposition state. It's not that, oh, you should, these arguments of like, you should fear God, or else you're going to go to hell, if you don't do this or do that, or you do this or you do that. Sure. If you go and you do something your father told you not to do, like, expect to be punished. And also, like, you can hide from your father on this level, but you can't hide from the father. He sees it all. But at the same time, he's also capable of protecting you totally in a way that even your father on this level cannot. And that's a profound way of thinking about existence that is so much more beautiful than and meaningful, that you're here, you're part of a greater whole, you have purpose, you are created with intention, and that, yeah, that means that there's obligations, but following those obligations also opens up more freedoms, just like I said with, choosing marriage. If you're attracted to the opposite gender, you'll put in $5 and you'll get back 50. It's like, Jesus gave his life, and then he became a universe. Like, that's putting in $5 and getting back 50. That's putting in $50 and getting back $5,000. That's it is the same structure. And so you have to self-limit in order to in order to actually also, like, be free. So a lot of people in this theory of everything space, or people who are interested in the theory of everything and who, argue with me on Discords, like, they haven't put constraints to start from. Like I said last night, they were like, why can't I make it 3 theory instead of, why do you start from 1? I'm like, because there's only one existence. Like, how do you know that? I was like, okay, like, this is this is like when years of thinking about something can't really be reconciled in like 5 minutes. But obviously, if you think about it long enough, you'll realize that all that exists outside of existence is non-existence, and non-existence doesn't exist. So all that exists is existence, and existence by logical inevitability of itself, and by definition, is one existence. It's not this existence and that existence. There's just existence. That gives you a constraint of starting with one. If you don't start there, good luck. And if you don't actually assume sentience, you're gonna end up like, I don't know, like maybe possibly where geometric unity is, where it got half, part of the way there, but then you don't get this. And this is everything that grows. And it's so simple. A hadron is an assembly of quarks. An atom is an assembly of hadrons. A molecule is an assembly of atoms. A cell is an assembly of molecules. An organism is an assembly of cells. A family is an assembly of organisms. A caste is an assembly of families. And technological singularity is an assembly of castes. And then you reach a constraint of oneness again, and it forces you to repeat the system within yourself instead of making another next to you. And basically, you get to play God. You get to not even play God. You get to create a universe and be the master of it. It's like, well, that's pretty amazing. Like, but this structure is just emergent and easy to not easy, but it's not impossible. It's very doable. I'll say that it's very doable, and it's oddly simple when you constrain yourself and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna admit that there's only one existence because that just seems to be a logical inevitability. Let's build from there. If you don't do that and you leave yourself totally open, you're like, well, it could be many worlds and it could be one world, it could be many existences in one existence, and maybe it's non-existent. Who are you to say that it's not three theory instead of starting with one? It's like, because you haven't been able to build anything objective from leaving it completely open. And that's true of the way that we live our lives as well. You don't choose to sacrifice a little bit of yourself in the way of constraining, putting yourself within constraints, like getting married. You actually can't increase your freedom. You can't. You're gonna be stuck. And that is going to leave you feeling empty because your soul is intrinsically discontent, and that means that it has to be moving in order to feel fulfillment. And if you're stuck and you're intrinsically discontent, it's going to feel empty. Anyways. You sing to your plants. That's fine. I sing to my dogs all the time. I don't sing to anything else around here, but I don't think it's irrational to sing to your plants. We would all get a laugh, even if the locals don't. I know. That's why I said if I bomb and it's funny, I'll post it. And like, one of the jokes is, I'll just say this, it is attempting to make the argument for the existence of God via circumcision. And it does a damn good job. And so it's very, very funny. I won't explain the other one because outside of context, it's very difficult for me to explain. And this is not the context to do it. But that one, I'll just leave it at that. And like, it probably, even that would lead you to want to chuckle even if you didn't. What do you think the idea of green reptile, plant, amphibian? Well, green is just the reflection of the natural manifestation or the natural observation of light. So when we think of green, we think of like that which is reflecting light. It's in my binary triality pattern that yellow and green are basically two perspectives of the same color, you could say, and that they're reflecting across an intrinsic constraint. So when we look out, we are seeing when sentience is looking around and seeing sources of light that are coming in waveform, we're gonna perceive it as yellow, basically, even if it's not perfectly yellow. When you go and you draw watercolor of lightning or fire or the sun, you always draw it as yellow, unless you're being weird. But even, I'll admit, lightning can sometimes be white, and orange can be, fire can be a bit orange, and the sun can be, a bit white. But it's like, when you draw them all as yellow. And that's because your mind is perceiving it. And this project was originally about the structure of mind, which is what I think is manifesting all the structures around us. And like, why are plants green? Why is photosynthesis, observed in the context of being green? It's because green and yellow are just like really one. It's almost like they're one color, but then it just depends on if you're looking at them as bouncing off of existence. If light is coming in from an outside source, we see it as yellow. When light is emanating outwards instead of emanating inward, it's emanating outward, then we perceive it as green. That's really what it is. It's very obvious with plants, and it in my binary triality pattern, yellow and green are in the spots that make them implied to be the same, viewing the same thing from two different perspectives. It's like a coin is, heads and tails are both, two perspectives of one coin. Or division and multiplication are two perspectives of one action. Same with addition and subtraction. They're not two separate things. They're one action, and you can view it two different ways. Same thing is happening with green and yellow. What do I think of frogs croaking? I have this frog thing that croaks. This little green frog. I don't know what I think of it. It's communication, it's music, it's pattern, it's cool. I don't know. It's just calling. It's like birds singing, and it's probably, partially it's communication, and sometimes it's, I don't know. Like, sometimes you're speaking to your spouse, and sometimes you are, singing to your plants. Probably true of birds and frogs and everything. Tone is key. I'm obsessed with it in electric guitar. I think that's awesome that you can play electric guitar. I have a guitar over there that somebody loaned me that I have not given back yet. They loaned it to me at the beginning of the pandemic because we're going to have a bunch of time at home, and I was like, I'm going to learn guitar. And I tried, and it wasn't really going great, and I started making all this progress on physics, and I stopped learning guitar, but I will pick it back up again. And then I'll probably give it back to them. If I get, like, and I have to get, like, okay at it, at least my goal with guitar is to get good enough to I can entertain myself and impress my fiance, she will be my wife at that point. Hopefully, like, not of 30 years. Hopefully I can learn it quicker than that, but it's not something I'm naturally good at. That's my only goal with guitar. I want to entertain myself when I'm bored and be good enough to do that, and then I want to be able to just, like, I don't know, impress my wife. Which you don't have to be very, very good to impress your wife at guitar. But only really began recording last year because I finally achieved a decent recording tone. Interesting. Well, we'll have to talk more about that on Thursday. I want to, like, hear how you learned. What are your thoughts on the intellectual dark web? I think Sam Harris is the chicken with his head cut off. And, that's not a moral judgment of his intentions. It's just, I think he has good intentions, but I think that he's a chicken with his head cut off. I think Eric is wiser than he lets on, even. Um, but I think the fact that he hides some of that wisdom is not wise. I mean, and I'm not claiming to be wiser than Eric in many ways. I mean, that man has two children and has been married for, I don't know how many decades, so like there's many things he could teach me about not just math. Um, so I'm not claiming to be wise in, situations that I haven't yet experienced. But, um, but Eric is very wise. Um, like once Brett Weinstein and I got into kind of a discussion of like he was claiming that it was a good thing that I asked him if dogs would like are fulfilling that need of like caring for a baby and delaying our desire to have children. And he said, yeah, probably. And I was like, well, that's probably a bad thing. And he was like, no, that's probably a good thing because older parents are wiser parents. And I was like, no, wiser parents are more experienced parents and you're delaying experience. And he didn't have a rebuttal for that. And then like Bernie Sanders tweeted at him and he stopped. We didn't continue the conversation. But Eric is focusing lately on empowering and enabling and stressing the importance of the formation of families, and that we're really having a problem. And it's a huge problem. But he's wrong when he says that it's unfortunate that women are not good at chess compared to men. That's not unfortunate. We're good at chess because that mentality of logical planning is what allows us to protect women. That's it. That talent is for the sake of women. It's not for the sake of us. It's like when I say, men are way funnier than women. Like there are some funny female comedians, but like men are way funnier than women. And it's because we can see the big picture and we can kind of like joke about it. We are funny for the sake of women. It's so that, like Paulina was like stressed out. Every time she gets stressed out about something, like my strategy is just to do something stupid to make her laugh. Like I'll just like, I don't know, peek around the corner and just like have my one eye staring at her and I just won't move until she just starts busting up laughing. It's like so stupid, but it works. And as soon as that's done, it's like conflict over. This is why men are funny. It's for that shit. It's useful. It's not just, oh, we're funny and you're not. That's one, like that concept, like I said, of like a little bit of science will leave you feeling empty and atheistic. Oh, but then complete science, you'll turn into a theist and you'll realize that existence is just beautiful and everybody has meaning. It's like a little bit of understanding, you'll realize that men are funnier than women and you're like, well, that sucks. Sorry, women. A lot of understanding, you'll be like, wow, men are funnier than women and it's for the sake of women and it really helps us. And women benefit from men being funny because we get to make them laugh all day long. That's literally a win-win. Like it's not a zero-sum game. It is a growth structure. That's what the universe is. It is a growth structure. It is not a zero-sum game. And a little bit of science will leave you feeling that it's a zero-sum game. It's not. You're not funnier than women for the sake of bragging about it and making women feel inferior. They're not inferior at all. You're funny so that you can make them laugh, so they can deal with life, and also so that you can deal with them, and so that they can deal with you, and you can laugh about it the entire time. We are here for the sake of each other. Our talents are for the sake of each other. You can't get more beautiful than that, guys. You teach guitar, dude. We will talk on Thursday. I know I can teach myself guitar, like I said, but the issue is I look at it and I'm focusing on how I'm sounding instead of attacking the problem of learning it. And I need to think of it as a fight, and I don't. I think about it like, do I sound like legit? And then I just fail. I fail, yeah, in that mentality. Like I said, good at martial arts, terrible at dancing. They're the same moves. Really good at these Excel models of existence. Really bad at music. By the way, they are also the same moves. So the intellectual dark web, everybody's different. You know, there's Sam Harris on one end, and then you have Dave Rubin, who's a really nice guy. Sam Harris is the only one I've never spoken to. And I basically disagree with him on everything at this point. And I used to think it was brilliant, but I don't know why. The only thing I will say, he is a leftist that does understand firearms, and he did a stream once on guns, and I was impressed. That didn't mean I agreed with everything that he said about how we should handle it, but he knew what he was talking about, and he did not want to take away my ability to defend myself, and I appreciate that. So Sam Harris, as far as wisdom scale goes, or just general like who understands things the best, it's gonna be like Sam Harris is at the bottom, then maybe like Dave Rubin, then, and they don't even consider themselves in the intellectual dark web or any whatever that means, but Owen was in the intellectual dark web. Like who? Like this is, he probably understands everything better than they do. I mean, I do think he does, but yeah, Sam Harris, Dave Rubin, Rhett Weinstein, then like Eric or Jordan Peterson. They're different, but it's hard to know. Probably Jordan Peterson understands the world a little bit better. Just because, I mean, he might not tell you the theory of everything in a physics context, but I mean, that's what his discussions about the maps of meaning and story archetype, he's talking about the theory of everything. That's what he's talking about. It's the same pattern. And it's a growth pattern. It's the pattern of the growth of information. And starting from an initial input and then leading to a self-referencing loop, like Bott periodicity. And not just loop, but loops within loops. So story within story. And, you know, that is the universal pattern. But Jordan Peterson has said things earlier than anyone else that he kind of stopped saying, but about like men and women and their ability to work together in corporate structures and stuff. And I think that was very based. I guess you could say, hey, when people say that's too much, because I think that it's become to the point where people who say that aren't really like based. It's just funny to say it, and you know, but that's based. Like it's true. That's what I mean by based. It means true. It doesn't mean like, oh, you're based. You're like saying something that's shocking. It's like, I don't even think that's shocking. It's kind of obvious when you think about it, but we just don't think about it. We're told not to think about it. Anyways, any final questions? We're at 9 concurrent viewers. That is awesome. I really appreciate everybody who's watching. Like, that's very cool. Hit the like button, please. If you are listening to this and you found value in it, feel free to post clips of it up or something like that. As long as you don't take me out of context and you tag me, I'm totally fine with that always. Also, in the description below, there's a link to my website, sentientsingularity.com. At the bottom of the homepage, there is a space where you can sign up for my email list. I highly recommend you do that. I have not even sent out a single email to anybody other than a welcome email that is automatic. so I won't spam you, but they're going to kick me off of here. And they're going to kick me off of everywhere. And if you watch this stream often, you know that I do have a plan for a new type of social media. But the issue, I think, fundamentally is that we need to discuss gender. And we can. In the current social media platforms. In the way that we need to. And we need to honestly discuss and confront our degrees of freedom and constraints. And we can't. Like, that is part of the theory of everything. If you want to understand existence, you need to talk about gender. And, like, be able to say things that, if you did say them, you would go the way of Stefan Molyneux and you'd be kicked off. So, very fast. Like, there's a reason why censorship is so prevalent in all these platforms, and it is because of the breakdown in gender dynamics itself. So, like I said, also, if you'd like to support this project monetarily, there is a link to Patreon below. I have spoken to some of you in private Discord conversations, and if you want to join the private Discord conversations, which happen 7 p.m. every Thursday, send me a private message on Instagram. I will give you a private link, and you can join our more, open discussion and calls that go on for hours. They're a good time always. And we can talk about anything on those. But I'll send you a link to those. And then also, like I said, if you want to donate to this project monetarily, or just support the Goldstein Wedding Fund, same place. But I've spoken to some of you about that experiment idea that I have that I want to run in the private Discord conversations. I'm thinking that I'm probably going to start making that idea much more public pretty soon, and but we'll see. And that's part of what that would fund, is an experiment to show that sentience it impacts matter. It literally unavoidably impacts matter, and more so than just saying I moved this, or obviously, it does, we can manipulate matter, but I'm saying the existence of sentience and the state of existence of sentience will have an impact on matter, and that's what my experiment will show, and it will show it. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Share this anywhere that you'd like, where among people that you think would enjoy it. And I will, what is it? Today is Wednesday, so tomorrow is the Discord conversation at 7. And we always have 6 or 7 regulars, and it goes well into the night. But always looking to get in new people. We can just talk live on a call about anything. And I teach more details about some of the math models and stuff like that. It's a good time. And maybe Phantom will teach us how to play guitar. So anyways, peace everyone. I will speak with you tomorrow, and if not, Shabbat Shalom. I will see you on Monday at 9 p.m. Peace.